Chapter 121. The embryonic form of industrialization. After some bargaining through the spell messenger, Harvey got the first purchase order of the Magic Stone steam engine, and the buyer was still from the old partner Dragonstone Chamber of Commerce. Compared with the leaks he had cut in the Spellcaster Forum, the transaction amount was actually not too high. A Magic Stone steam engine was priced at 150 gold pounds, including the machine body and a complete set of replacement spare parts, as well as special operation training. However, the newly established machinery factory has a low output. Limited by the workers' technical proficiency and cast iron output, it can only assemble a maximum of 5 qualified finished machines per month. The Dragonstone Chamber of Commerce's lion-sized order of 20 units can only be postponed to 4 months for delivery in batches. But Harvey was still very satisfied with the deal. The order amount was a full 3,000 gold pounds, and all the materials used were produced by the territory. The iron ore from the southwest mining area was transported back to the iron smelting plant in the territory to directly smelt iron ingots, and then transferred to the cast iron workshop to complete the smelting of various parts, and finally sent to the machinery factory for assembly. This is already a very complete set of industrial production chains. Putting aside the cost of labor and raw materials, the net profit can be close to 50%, allowing Harvey to make a net profit of 1,500 gold pounds. In addition, the subsequent equipment maintenance, parts replacement, modification, and many other after-sales support need to be sent back to the pioneer territory. This continuous income will gradually increase the profit as the production and sales of the machine increase, and it can provide a large number of jobs for the territory and cultivate a very mature group of technical workers. The pioneer territory originally received refugees and slaves living in the northern wilderness. They have been homeless for generations, or enslaved by evil orcs and bound to livestock pastures. The offspring born will have the same future and cannot see any hope. Before coming to the territory, most people lived a numb life day after day. What drove them to work and hunt was not the desire from the heart, but the constant hunger and the whips and sharp blades of the evil orc slave owners, which led to their extremely low efficiency in production and labor, and very high loss of manpower. There are also a large number of poor people in the southern continent who have lost their land or are driven by high taxes to flee their homeland and are forced to become serfs. Harvey believes that the low social productivity during this period is probably caused by this unreasonable and cruel serfdom system, which is the biggest enemy of the industrialization process and must be abolished in his territory. Therefore, Harvey provides all refugees who join the pioneer territory with an opportunity to change their identity and destiny, work hard to earn income, accumulate assets for themselves and benefit their descendants. Or receive education, complete the upgrade from physical work to technical work, and finally achieve class transition. Among them, professional soldiers in the regular army and managers in municipal departments are typical. They are the first group of people to taste the dividends of class leap, which will undoubtedly greatly encourage later generations to follow and quickly integrate into the institutional ecology of the territory. In addition to the machinery factory, Harvey also plans to build new textile factories, steel mills, shipyards, steam carriage shops and many other production and manufacturing ports that are in line with the development of industrialization. After all, it is impossible for Harvey to achieve the complete industrialization of the territory by just piecing together a magic steam engine with his shallow experience as a time traveler. Moreover, he was not a technician in the relevant profession in his previous life, and he could not even understand the mechanical design drawings. Only by attracting enough people to participate in the manufacturing, transportation, and sales of industrialized products can this wave of development be truly set off. As long as these basic industrial prototypes appear in the territory and get on the right track, there will be an endless supply of supporting industries in the future. Letting them develop freely at the beginning may be inefficient and the product qualification rate may be terrible, but they will gradually become proficient and train qualified professional workers. As long as there are suitable people, Harvey has the confidence to not only realize the internal circulation of various materials and commodities in the territory, but also take into account the import and export business of generating income, and spread his business empire throughout the southern countries. Sir, the inspection department you requested to set up, the office space of the police department, has been completed. Yesterday, the construction department has completed the internal details. The subsequent recruitment of personnel. Reiner held the work record manual and stood behind Harvey to report. How is the recruitment? Are there not enough people who come to apply? I remember that the salary is not lower than that of farms and factories. For a long time before, all the work related to security and crime inspection in the territory was directly handed over to the patrol team of the Defense Army, but this is not a long-term solution, especially as the territory wall is about to be completed. This group of soldiers who were originally responsible for the defense of the territory will always shoulder the defense of the territory wall and the daily vigilance around the territory. The armed forces of the army should not directly intervene in the internal supervision of the territory. The magic guns in the hands of the soldiers must always be consistent with the outside world, and they must never aim the muzzle at their compatriots at will. Therefore, it is necessary to have a semi-armed organization independent of the army and the territory laws that came into being at this time. The formulation, interpretation, and adjustment of the law are of course best in the hands of Harvey, the supreme ruler of the territory. However, a simple and effective inspection agency is the basic guarantee for the smooth implementation of laws and regulations. The Department of Police is used to supervise the municipal center and to identify and arrest all individuals or groups that may endanger the stability of the territory. This department needs to be directly responsible to me and is completely independent of the military and municipal departments. Harvey turned his head and ordered to Leonard, so when it comes to recruiting people, you must firmly control it, only choose northern refugees with innocent status and simple origins, and do not let a person from the southern border invade in, so as to avoid accidents. Reiner nodded and honestly recorded what Harvey said. There is no mistake. 619, 1 book, 1 a book. Sir, what I wanted to say before is the issue of recruiting personnel. The Defense Army and the North Frontier Army have just experienced an enrollment expansion. Young people who meet the enlistment requirements are more willing to join the army than join, the police department. After all, the monthly salary of an ordinary soldier is 120 gold yuan, and he can still keep food and accommodation in the military camp. Leonard paused, his tone was quite complicated. Even factory workers can get 100 gold yuan a month if the police department's recruitment salary is equivalent to that of workers. Those young people who meet the standards prefer factory work. After all, they can learn a skill that can be with them. Harvey patted his forehead and then remembered the various jobs he had offered casually, which seemed a little casual and unreasonable because it was the distribution of printed banknotes. Basic production departments such as farms, factories, and mining areas should naturally encourage everyone to actively participate in labor by using the form of more work and more income, stable basic salary and floating overtime salary. Institutions such as the military, municipal administration and police department should fix a higher salary quota, which should not only ensure high salary and integrity but also clarify the promotion channel, otherwise a group of government borers with corpses in their place will gradually be raised. It has a harmful effect on the future development of the territory. Renner, prepare a set of paper and pen for me. I want to readjust the salary system for all professional positions in the territory. Reiner was shocked and said blankly, Sir, is this going to cut the salary? Harvey laughed and said, Of course not. The readjustment means an overall salary increase. Encourage everyone to work actively. As for different positions, the natural increase is different. Chapter 122. In fact, Harvey has always had a general plan for the future public security and defense system for pioneering territory. However, due to the rapid surge in the territory's population in a short period of time, he turned all his energy to grain planting and material production, which instead slowed down the progress of this part of the affairs. After the winter, the population of the territory had reached about 10,000. In addition to the refugees in the northern wastelands, there were also many serfs from the southern countries. They originally took the risk of crossing the Shenji Mountains to make a living in the northern border, but they were later taken to the southern border. The relocated evil orc tribe was in a dilemma. Fortunately, Harvey arranged many alchemy beasts with extremely high mobility in advance, and cooperated with a small group of soldiers to scatter around to gather the poor. In addition, many ethnic minorities such as orcs and mixed dwarves have joined, further complicating the population structure of the territory, resulting in large differences in the quality of the territorial people, and some civil disputes and violent conflicts have often erupted. Harvey also felt that even if there was a defense force responsible for handling this part of the disputes and conflicts, he did not have so much free time to be the judge of the Qingtian. Most of the time, he would just give him a bowl of water and beat him to the point. Now it is time to implement and improve the public security system. After all, you have the independent legislative power of the territory, and the supporting internal violent agencies must keep up with the pace. The Lord personally designates the laws, interprets and adjusts the laws and regulations, and judges some major crimes such as betrayal of the Lord, colluding with foreign enemies. The police department arrests and interrogates criminals in accordance with the law, handles some civil disputes part-time, and is responsible for supervising the integrity of other administrative systems, which can effectively delay the corruption of power groups in the territory but only delay and prevent, and to completely eliminate them. Corruption, Harvey believes this is unlikely in any era and in the world. By then, the territory will implement its own legal stripes and accept strict control by various administrative departments. The only person who can hold the charter and override the law can only be the Supreme Lord himself. As for the current head of the police department, Harvey intends to first examine whether there are suitable candidates in the military and municipal systems, but at present, a Starin can only serve as the same person. After all, the absolute rationality of alchemy life is to do this. The cold-blooded work of the Lord Hawk is still very suitable. Nympho. When Max Anton limped back to the rented house, the old Mother Jenner, who was guarding the door, immediately greeted her. "Max, it took so long to come back, your leg, hasn't he healed yet? Can you rest at home more often?" Max lowered his head slightly and grinned, "It's okay, but when he came back from the market, he encountered a little accident." He turned his neck and showed the bleeding stop wound behind his ear to his mother who was looking at him. "Hiss! How could it hurt your head? Are you fighting with someone?" Jenna quickly untied a piece of clean cotton cloth from her waist and gently wiped the remaining blood stains flowing to her neck. "I was knocked with a stick, but I avoided it, but I was just scratched." He waved his hand indifferently and sat on the chair in front of the fireplace. "Those people from the south are in the market area again. I really can't stand it when I bully Madame Eureka and her family. Madame Eureka is their neighbor, and she was also a poor wasteland refugee. The only special thing is that she adopted 2 orcs, and both of them were underage. It all depends on Madame Eureka on weekdays. Go to the swamp to pick mushrooms and sell them at the market for gold to support them. Except for the strict ban in the army, most people in the territory have a slight discriminatory attitude towards the orcs. Although the Lord's law stipulates that everyone treats everyone equally in terms of study, work, and salary, it is not necessarily true in life. Now." Later, the defense patrol came and whipped all of us. Max straightened his waist and lifted his shirt. "I was lucky, I just got a little bit and hit it." Jenna took a deep breath and looked at the hideous blood mark behind her son. "This is much heavier than the injury on her head. I'll get some furnace dust to apply to you." Max waved his hands repeatedly to stop him. "Mom! Don't, those native methods will infect me." A doctor who was shopping in the market area kindly reminded me that he would keep the wound dry and just ventilate. At most, he would be cured in 1 week. If you are really infected, although the medical hospital's treatment and medication charges are very cheap, it is not something that poor families like them can afford. After all, my mother Jenna works on the farm without a fixed contract, and she only earns 60 yuan a month, and she has to bear the food and rent expenses for 2 people. Max himself is an unemployed vagrant and doesn't even have a temporary job to make a living. He sat on the chair with his head down, looking at his curved and deformed legs with complicated eyes, and his right hand that trembled from time to time. When he was a child, he unfortunately suffered from high fever. Although he had to rely on the strong physique of the wasteland man to survive and save his life, the sequelae brought by this terrible disability that accompanied him throughout his life. Jenna squatted beside the iron pot in the fireplace and served him hot soup. Suddenly sighed in a low voice, "You shouldn't always stand up for others. You should learn to endure things in the future, otherwise I'll worry." Max coughed and interrupted his mother's nagging, "I can't bear it a little. Mom, you know my personality and you should also know what kind of virtues those people in the south are." He rolled up his trousers and put his feet close to the fireplace to bake. "Moreover, I am not a brainless guy. I deliberately chose time to beat them up today." "You were deliberately causing trouble?" Jenna was stunned with the bowl. Every afternoon, a patrol team of the Defense Army will enter the market area and perform patrol missions. Max laughed softly, "I mean to let them see that a group of people in the southern border bullied one because of their large population. The old lady and the 2 orcs who were not even hairy." Max blinked at his solemn mother and whispered, "I heard that there is an orc officer in the highest commander of the North Army. That is very majestic. If these things are so big, people will say maybe they will stand out for their fellow tribe." Jenna complained that the soup bowl was stuffed into Max's hand. "Your brain has been smarter than other children since childhood, and your reaction to things is faster than others. She turned her eyes and just saw her son's deformed leg, and then fell silent with a complicated expression. Bang bang bang. Someone outside suddenly knocked on the wooden door of their cottage. There is no mistake. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 619, 1 book, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, a book. Max stood up and ran over and opened the door. Is this the Max Anton's house? The person came was a man in a black soldier uniform, looking energetic with a spear on his back. I'm Max, this sir. Max thought to himself, was it because the fight was really hit by the official in the afternoon? Now I'm going to come directly to the door. The soldier in black did not put a lasso on him directly, nor did he point the magic gun behind him at his head and let him kneel down and not move. Instead, he took out a thin piece of paper from his arms and simply checked Max and Jenner about the identity information they entered when they joined the territory. At 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, please report to the police department next to the municipal center on time. Do not be late. The soldier finished speaking coldly and turned around and was about to leave. Max quickly called him, Sir? Have I been involved in any lawsuit? The soldier replied loudly without looking back, No, someone recommends you to go to the police department for an interview, and you have the chance to become a trainee police officer. Chapter 123. The area of the Shenji Mountains where the Puhuan leader is located has not snowed again for about a week. This means that the bitter and cold winter is about to end, and the hopeful spring is coming soon. The days when the snow melted were actually far colder than usual. Harvey attended the completion ceremony of the pioneering city wall with a biting chill, and announced in advance in front of thousands of leaders who participated in this huge project. A salary increase plan for the new year. The cheers like tsunamis resounded inside and outside the city wall. After a winter of hard work, the people in charge were grateful and excited from the bottom of their hearts. This jubilant heat wave rushed towards Harvey standing on the city wall, making him my body, which was originally a little cold, was slightly hot. Although the outpost on the city wall is sheltered from the wind and rain, it is still too cold. If the soldiers stay inside for a long time, even if there is a fireplace for heating, they are still prone to being frozen and sick. Harvey sucked his nose and headed from the city wall. Walking down, he ordered Reiner beside him, turn the HVAC system to the city wall. At worst, you can build more hot water boilers near the base of the wall, and don't worry about the cost. Whether it is an endless primeval forest or an extreme temperature with extremely large temperature differences, the northern wasteland is not the most suitable area for human life to reproduce. This defect can only be compensated for through scientific and technological development and planning construction. Fortunately, the land that has never been reclaimed for thousands of years is extremely fertile, and various kinds of products are very rich. In just 1 year, this territory that has been secretly expanded several times by Harvey not only surveyed many wealthy mineral veins, even some wild magic plants that are extremely rare in the southern countries have been discovered. Even the ice-filled river, which is frozen for 3 or 4 months of the year, has a very abundant fishery output. The fishermen who are responsible for fishing operations at the river beach docks often only need to sail in the early morning and evening to return home with a full load. The endless stream of fatty river fish is transported to the convenience market. On the way back to the castle, he passed the municipal center. Harvey saw many leaders who had previously participated in the construction of the city wall around the door, queuing up to apply for the newly opened factories. What Reiner had always been worried about before that, the situation where thousands of leaders might experience unemployment waves after the city wall was completed, and now it has been perfectly solved. Labor-intensive industries such as textile factories and steel mills can almost absorb this group of people. Most of them are involved in the work. When Egno finished his work at the hospital, remember to ask him when he could increase the yield of magic cotton seeds. Spring is coming soon, and the land allocated to plant cotton has been plowed, right? Lina Liso took out his small book and flipped it quickly. Mr. Egno should be able to enchant the first batch of cotton seeds within this week, and will not delay the cotton spring sowing plan. The textile factory was established before the cotton fields, which led to the fact that most of the raw materials for production are imported from outside by Harvey using real money and silver. The territory government, which finally achieved a balance of income and expenditure, has entered a state of pain in spending money like flowing water. Only after this spring plowing cycle can we harvest this batch of enchanted cotton in autumn, which doubles its output in the loss of raw materials. The northern border is bitter and cold. It is definitely unrealistic to rely solely on imported ready-made clothing fabrics or animal leather produced by hunting teams to help people of more than 10,000 people achieve freedom of clothing. Nympho. Sir, that inner demon gentleman has sent a few living demon spirits through the sacrifice array. Do you directly transform them, or save them first and raise them for a while? Harvey was hesitating, and Reiner immediately added, Mr. Instinct Demon asked when can he arrange for him to visit the territory again. Harvey couldn't help rolling his eyes. Hasn't it been more than a month since he eat and take the last time? Why are you coming again when you are so anxious? It's really easy to treat guests and send them off. Tell him that the next visit will be tentatively scheduled for the middle of next month. I'm too busy recently and don't have time to receive it. This is not a purely polite rejection, Harvey has been really busy lately. Since completing the analysis of the form of energy-absorbing beetles and living demon spirits, he has spent almost a lot of time every day to edit and transform this part of the life source code, and then attach them to the ground through the miniature wolf spider beast. On the crystal column of the magic stone or vein, a code database that can be programmed and called at any time is formed. No one can complete this job for him, so he can only rely on Harvey's own liver day and night, which makes Harvey, who is already weak, dark circles deeper. Fortunately, Egno has recently prepared a lot of magic potions to improve energy and enhance physical fitness. Harvey took it on time every day according to the doctor's instructions, which has relieved a lot of physical discomfort. This potion formula was peeped by Harvey from the member transactions of the Caster Forum, but the potion is indeed effective. His recent research topic was also inadvertently seen from the forum, and he burst into new inspiration and began to conduct an experiment soul stitching technology. This is a research topic that was repeatedly argued by the Mirror Man and the legendary spellcaster Scarring Master. It is still in the theoretical stage because it involves taboo issues that violate the Federation regulations, and there is no note experiment yet. Harvey can't take care of that much. He is in the private territory of the Northern Wasteland, but the Emperor is far away. He can start anytime if he wants to do it. The idea proposed by Mr. Cairo is indeed very novel, but this phenomenon actually happens often. Why hasn't anyone paid attention to it before? Harvey murmured to himself as he flipped through the experimental log. Reiner was his assistant for today's experiment, so he had installed the mechanical octopus prosthesis on his back early. This experiment required very stable and fast delicate operations, and it was most appropriate for his 6 metal tentacles to complete it. The legendary spellcaster compared the souls of all lives to seeds of different shapes and properties, and the growth of mental power represented the sprouts and thriving branches in the soul seeds. No mistakes, 1 song, 1 post, 1 content, 1 6, 1 9, 1 book, 1 bar, 1 look. This is why many attacking spells, involving soul level damage, often cause the caster's spirit to suffer severe damage, but as long as the soul seed is not destroyed, the mental power will always recover. The soul is renewable and has a certain degree of self-healing. This led Harvey to derive a bold experimental idea: if he could successfully extract the complete soul seeds from the living body, he could sew them together with mental power. Does that mean that this strange self-healing property will cause the soul seeds that are forcibly stitched together to slowly merge into one and become a brand new soul whole? From the perspective of the professional talent of the spellcaster, manipulating the soul is indeed the main research direction of the Necromancer faction, but in Harvey's cognition and understanding, it seems that no Necromancer has ever tried to conduct experimental research other than manipulating the soul of a creature. This alien world with many extraordinary people is not short of amazing geniuses in the way of magic. The taboos and super ring spells in various historical books also prove that none of the legendary spellcasters that have emerged in the past are not talented in creation and research. Why has no one tried to break through the research barriers in the soul? This is what Harvey is most puzzled about. Even the Alchemy Exploration Society with a long history is still stuck in the most basic soul transfer technology. What hindered the research path of these genius predecessors? Chapter 124. I have to say that the magic microscope made by Harvey is indeed easy to use by applying liquid mitral to the enchanted crystal lens. It not only has the subtle observation effect of an ordinary microscope, but also can clearly observe the magic surge and mental transmission path of things through the lens. It can be called an experimental artifact of research casters. This thing does not involve any prohibited regulations at present, nor does it have any technical confidentiality issues. After Harvey decides that after mass production, it will be publicly promoted in the Spellcaster Forum to benefit others and help yourself. Harvey also designed an additional head-mounted magic microscope that can be installed on Reiner's metal head, so that he can observe the reaction process of the target in the experiment and report the results to himself at any time. Sir, this thing is simply amazing. Through it, I can see the magic flowing in your body. It is like Mr. Egno said, blood, along some dense veins, flowing orderly throughout your body. Harvey asked with a smile, can you see where the magic in my body finally gather? Through meditation, the magic power drawn from the magic web plane will be gathered in the sea of consciousness of the brain, where there is a spiritual power channel that can connect to the positioning of the magic pattern. For knights or warriors who have activated their bloodline talents, their bloodline energy gathers in the heart, and through special training methods, they drive these bloodline energy to use for themselves. I can't seem to see clearly where these magic powers finally gather. Reiner's words were filled with confusion and doubt, they seemed to have no head or tail. Oh my god, they really have no source and no end. Harvey felt a sense of fear in his heart as he heard Reiner's slightly trembling tone. How is it possible? My magic flows, no source or end. So where did it come from? I obviously draw magic from the magic net through meditation. Could it be that my mutated magic pattern is caused by it again? Or is it the spiritual anchor of the time traveler who misleads Reiner's observations? Faced with these strange situations that appeared on him, Harvey was now a little numb. It seems like I know where I have a problem, but since I can't find the root cause and have no sudden illness, I can only temporarily pretend that I haven't seen it. After all, life has to continue, and experiments must be carried out. Nympho. After about 4 or 5 failures, Harvey and Reiner finally successfully extracted the soul seed of a chimpanzee. This primate has been proven to be one of the species with relatively powerful soul and mental power except for humans, demons, and elves. After all, if weak or low-intelligent insects or other wild beasts are used, they cannot withstand repeated soul transfer experiments, and the soul will often collapse directly during 2 to 3 extraction and transfers. Sir, how can the soul of a chimpanzee be sutured with other animals and injected into the alchemy shell? What kind of alchemy beast will be produced? Reiner stopped talking several times, and finally couldn't help asking. He participated in the soul transfer experiments that he had participated in too many times. Sometimes Harvey was busy, and Reiner could even cooperate with Asterin alone to complete batches of alchemy beast transformation work. But those are simple one-way soul transfers, and they do not involve the extraction and suture of the soul seeds at all, and they are completely incomparable in terms of difficulty coefficient. I don't know either. This is just a preliminary experiment to confirm the idea. We can only take one step at a time and try our best to learn from failure. Harvey continued to operate the soul extractor without raising his head and started the subsequent experimental process step by step. After really sowing the chimpanzee soul seeds with the soul of an ordinary wasteland camel bull, Harvey carefully transferred them into a temporary pieced-together alchemy shell. To avoid accidents, this alchemy body only has the torso and head part, and does not have additional limb drives installed. In this way, even if this soul stitcher wants to suddenly attack them, there is no body available. After the soul transfer is completed, the energy inscriptions densely spread on the alchemy body slowly light up, which means that the soul that has already accommodated alchemy life in the specific body. On the temporarily assembled simple metal head, the funny one-eyed eyes also shone slightly red. Then the head slowly began to rotate, and the torso part that was firmly fixed to the metal bracket also trembled gently. After all, it was not refined by human souls, so Harvey could not communicate directly with it and obtain experimental feedback. He turned his head and signaled that Reiner could communicate with alchemy life through the energy connection pipeline and issue instructions. Sir, this is so strange. It conveys to me the curiosity and desire for these things. Reiner pointed to the various experimental instruments piled up on the experimental bench. This is indeed the reaction of chimpanzees, high IQ primates. They always have a high degree of curiosity about various tools and parts. This was a problem when Harvey transformed monkeys as working alchemy beasts before. Accurate conclusion. Put it the limbs of the alchemy camel beast, put it off the bracket, I want to see how it reacts under instinct drives. Nympho. There is no mistake, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 619, 1 book, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, a book. Harvey and Reiner stood speechlessly, silently watching the alchemy life transformed from the soul-stitching monster, and were extremely gentle and slowly spinning around the laboratory, picking up a piece of metallic part or tool from time to time, and then play with curiously for a while, then try hard to collect these things and place them on your flat back. How did it become a metal trash guy? It's very suitable to send it to the municipal center's department responsible for handling residents' garbage. It has to be picked up and collected when it comes to what you like. Reiner held the experimental record book and quickly recorded the experimental process and results. At least it is not aggressive. I am also worried that after the soul is stitched, this thing will turn into a chaotic and bloodthirsty violent monster. Harvey shook his head and denied Reiner's conjecture. Champions and camel bulls are both mild-tempered animals. If we sew the grey wolf and the swamp crocodile together, the final product would not be so gentle and cute. But he did not think that this experiment was a funny failure. At least he accurately observed that the final whole of the two stitched souls was dominated by the part with more powerful soul energy. The instinctive behavior of this sutured alchemy beast was still guided by the soul of the chimpanzee, although the final result was slightly nonsensical. Reiner, I think the soul stitching experiment will play a very important role in certain specific scenarios. Reiner scratched his iron bald head and felt a little incomprehensible. Special scene? Sir, are you saying, besides being able to make these useless clown machines, can they have real practical uses? Harvey smiled slightly, recalling in his mind the alchemy device taken out by the man in the mirror armor tutor's arm. Of course, for example, a broken limb replantation, or a transplant of alchemy limbs for disabled people. Chapter 125. Asterin looked at the report Leonard handed over and felt a slight squeaking in his eyebrows. Is this the list of candidates recruited by the police department during this period? He looked through it from beginning to end. Why are so many disabled people? Well, many are on the front line and evil orcs during the battle, soldiers who were injured, disabled, and forced to retire. Reiner nodded seriously and explained, Mr. Harvey told me in advance that you don't have to care about the disability of these veterans. As long as you have innocent status and have combat experience, you can all be put into the recruitment list. Asterin held his forehead and felt that the core of the prosthetic body in his brain was overheated. What do you want to do, sir? Turn the police department into a nursing home for disabled veterans. While arguing about this question, the two quickly rushed to the castle laboratory and wanted to personally find Harvey, who issued the order, to reconfirm again. That's right. I did arrange it like this. What's wrong? Isn't there enough candidates? Is it necessary to be a retired soldier? A northern refugee with clean identities can also be included in the alternative. While operating the experimental instruments, Harvey chatted with the two assistants indifferently. Asterin wondered, Sir, but these disabled soldiers can't even fight with magic guns again. Most of them have upper limbs, and some have broken legs and lame feet. How can they be competent? What is the job of the police department? Harvey then unveiled his experimental protective mask and began to explain his plans seriously. The evil orcs make a comeback every year, and the Battle of the Pioneers will never stop, let alone the southern nobles on the other side of the Divine Ridge Mountains, who are also us. It is impossible for the battle to be without casualties. We should try our best to provide for the injured. What about the injured? Have you ever thought that as time goes by, this group of people will increase? How to cheer them up and return to their normal working roles is actually a very important topic. Physical disability often brings various psychological problems. When this group of people is huge, unstable factors that threaten the safety of the territory are prone to occur. Harvey can't explain to people of this era what serious diseases of war trauma means, and he cannot effectively identify and cure this part of poor people who may suffer from PTSD. The best way is to let them return to society and participate in the operation of the government's huge administrative machine, and subtly transform their concept from I am a useless person to I am still useful to society. What do you mean? Reiner actually predicted Harvey's plan and thoughts, but he felt it was a bit too terrifying and didn't dare to confirm it. The soul suture and limb transplant experiments some time ago. Harvey said openly. I plan to select a few people with strong will and loyal beliefs from this group of people and conduct prosthetic transplant experiments. Reiner and Asterin stopped talking for a moment. After all, they were the first beneficiaries of Harvey's human experiments, so it was naturally impossible to jump out and oppose Harvey's experiments. Even though it is explicitly forbidden in the laws and regulations of the Union, in the concept of two alchemy life, the fucking Treaty of the Union is not important without Harvey's casual command. Reiner took out the list and handed it to Harvey. Sir, what standard should I choose the first batch of subjects? Harvey is actually in trouble with this problem. After all, he is in simplicity. Compared with Pierce, Reiner, and others, he is too unfamiliar with these soldiers and civilians at the bottom. Well, on these lists, I have a little impression of the two people. You can include them as the alternative first, and you can ask Pierce for the rest. Harvey clicked on two candidates on the list who had a little impression of him. This one is called Yurio. In the last assassination, after interrogation and assessment, he met the conditions. I remember he seemed to be disabled with one arm cut off. There is also this guy, the smart guy Egno accidentally met when he was wandering around the market area last time. He seemed to have lower limb deformities. Harvey thought for a while and then ordered, the first batch of subjects don't need to pick too many people. After all, there are still some risks of surgery, so let's set 3 people for a tentative basis. When Yurio was called out from the non-commissioned officer dormitory by his own battalion commander, he was quite confused. He has been in the Defense Army for a while, and most of the time he organized soldiers at night as required, participating in some collective activities and public discussions. The theme is often centered on the army of the territory is the army of the people, and every soldier is from civilians, so he should fight for the people. Or comrades in arms should learn to cultivate a relationship of trust and mutual assistance, and only when necessary can they hand over their backs to their colleagues. He also often intervened in disputes among small groups of soldiers and took the initiative to ease these slightly discordant atmospheres in the army. In addition, he was originally a trainee knight. Although he had a broken hand, he was still tall and handsome. Many soldiers admired his eloquence and demeanor, which allowed him to quickly integrate into the group that entered the army. "Sir, have you issued me any task instructions?" Yurio was a little confused. Because of his disability, he could not even use a magic gun, and would not follow the soldiers for daily training. Most of his work was "it depends on one mouth." The battalion commander shook his head and explained, "It's not a mission command. I received the command from the commander-in-chief to ask you." He looked a little complicated, and after thinking for a long time, he asked, "You met the Lord before?" "At that time, he personally promised you that if there is a way to restore your broken limb, will you voluntarily try?" As soon as the battalion commander said something, Yurio felt his heart beating heavily, as if blood was flowing to his head. "I do. Of course I do. Sir, I thought. Lord, I just comforted me casually at that time." His eyes were slightly red with excitement. If I can really recover my arms, then I am just pick up the magic gun with your own hands. There is no mistake. 1619, one book, a book. The battalion commander bent the corner of his mouth and showed a gratifying smile. "Don't be too happy too early. Lord told me to tell you clearly that the limb surgery is not 100% successful, but even if it fails, it won't cost you your life." At night, Pierce, who had just returned from the fortress rotation, brought 3 subjects to Harvey's laboratory in person. "Sir, these 3 people are brought here." Pierce approached Harvey and whispered in his ear, "I have asked each other personally. They are completely voluntary and guarantee that the experimental process and results are kept confidential." He paused and added softly, "Please rest assured that they are keen on you. Haha, it can be said that they support you to the point of fanaticism." Harvey couldn't help rolling his eyes, ignoring Pierce's joke, and turned his head to look at the 3 people who stood in front of him, with a slightly nervous and restrained expression. "The disabled. Don't be too nervous, and don't worry about suffering severe pain. Mr. Egno will work with me to complete your broken limb transplant." Harvey tried to calm the 3 brave subjects in a slightly gentle tone. Yurio had seen Harvey once, so he took the lead in plucking up the courage to respond loudly, "Lord, we will not be afraid. We can recover our disabled body. It is a gift you give to us." The remaining 2 people nodded quickly, their eyes full of enthusiasm and admiration. Harvey nodded, satisfied with their attitude and performance. "Okay, let's not waste time. Come on, you guys take off all your clothes first." Chapter 126. Max opened his eyes, turned over and sat up from the bed, and then tried several chest expansion exercises, and found that there was no familiar pain coming from his back. It seemed that the wound caused by the whip had basically healed. "It's right. Mother Jenner did not go out to the farm early this morning, but instead waited by the fireplace in the living room for Max to go out together. How is it? The wound on your back?" Jenna asked with concern. "Do you want to ask your superior for a leave and take a few more days of rest, After all, you have just finished. Max put on the patrol uniform that was ironed neatly last night and hung on the wall, interrupting his mother's nagging. Mom, don't worry, today is the first day I went to the police department to take up my post. Look at me, is it so arrogant enough to wear this uniform? Jenna walked up to him and reorganized the collar, unbuttoned the misaligned buttons again. Of course my son is arrogant. You will be a person who eats public food in the future. God bless you, I never thought of it. One day. Max gently hugged his mother with both hands and kissed her weather-beaten cheeks. Okay, Mom, can I take the leather boots beside me? I want to wash my face first. Jenna walked to the door and picked up the leather boots she had washed repeatedly last night, with a complicated look. There is only one leather boot. She turned her head slightly and looked at her son, who was bent down to rub his face hard in front of the wooden basin, her tall and strong body, A&D. A mechanical prosthetic leg with a brass-colored metallic luster and a strange pattern on the surface. Jenner still remembers the night before, when Max was carried back on a stretcher by several black soldiers. She lifted up the sheet covering her son and felt when she saw this metal prosthetic leg. Max was sawed off his originally deformed calf and replaced it with a metal prosthetic leg. Jenna collapsed and cried bitterly on the spot. She couldn't imagine how cruel her son was treated at that time. Mom, don't worry, I didn't suffer any torture. Lord Egno of the medical hospital anesthetize me and relieve pain. Lord, I personally replaced me with a brand new mechanical prosthesis. Jenner still remembers the crazy admiration on Max's face at that time and his constant murmuring and repeating words, I am no longer a waste, and no one will call me Cripple Mike. Yurio got up early one morning, picked up his luggage he had packed in advance last night, and hugged and said goodbye to the soldiers who returned to the dormitory early after the morning exercises. Yes, he was transferred again. After less than 2 months of working in the Defense Army, he received a transfer order issued by the Lord himself, from the political commissar of the Defense Army to the superintendent of the police department. I said, everyone, don't just keep your face down. I just moved from the camp to the administrative area. I can also come back to visit you from time to time. You can also come out to find me during holidays. Sir Yurio, I heard you were demoted to patrol captain. Why? We all think you did a good job in the Defense Army. A veteran who spoke indifferently couldn't help but complain loudly. Yurio quickly hugged his shoulder and covered his slutty mouth. What are you talking nonsense? I am promoted to the superintendent of the police department. Do you understand the value of this, and you will be at the same level as the battalion commander in the future. The veteran whose mouth and nose were covered by him flushed, and he rolled his eyes and struggled hard, and then Yurio let him go. Sir Yurio, my mother, do you know that your mechanical iron arm is almost crushing my shoulders and head? Yurio was stunned in place for a moment, and then suddenly remembered that he had just used 2 hands. Why, I didn't feel anything at all. It's like this is what it should be, as if I've never been cut off my arm. He subconsciously looked at his newly equipped mechanical prosthesis, and with a thought, his arm slightly raised, and the metal palm flexibly led his fingers to clench his fist. Lord did not break his promise. He really fulfilled his promise and restored my broken limbs to the same as before. Although it was done in the form of a mechanical arm, this was no different from my original real arm. Even stronger and more powerful. Now even if the evil orc who cut off his arm stood in front of him, Yurio was fully sure and punched the opponent's head directly. Yurio quickly returned home, threw the luggage he brought out of the barracks inside the house, and immediately turned around and rushed to the newly built police hall. As soon as I walked to the gate of the police hall, I saw another lucky man who had undergone a broken limb reconstitution surgery with him from afar, Max Anton. The other party also noticed Yurio's figure with sharp eyes, waved his hand excitedly, and greeted him loudly. Mr. Yurio. Hi. We arrived at the same time. Max tried hard to trot and met Yurio and entered the police hall together. Who knew that he seemed not very comfortable with the mechanical prosthetic leg without shoes? He kicked it gently and rushed forward like lightning. His body could not maintain balance immediately and staggered a few times with difficulty. Later, he finally fell into a mess and ate his shit. Yurio resisted the hilarious urge, stepped forward and helped him up, and patted the dust stained on his new uniform for him. After the operation is completed, have you not listened to Lord Harvey's advice carefully? Before you fully adapt to this, don't do too violent movements, as it will cause you to be injured unexpectedly. Max grinned and showed his white teeth. He laughed and said, I was careless. The power and speed of this leg burst out are too powerful. He looked at the left and right and quietly came to Yurio. He whispered in his ear, last night, while there was no one, I actually jumped directly from the first floor to the roof with one leg. God! Yurio frowned slightly, just about to remind him not to be too arrogant. A cold and calm voice suddenly came from his ears, are you two performing acrobatics at the gate of the police hall? Get in. There is no mistake, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 619, 1 book, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, a book. He was their interim chief, Mr. Astarin, the chief advisor to Lord. The two of them immediately shrugged, closed their mouths and followed them into the police hall in disgrace. The lobby on the first floor was empty, and several trainee police officers who came to work earlier than them were standing in a row against the wall, and no one dared to chat casually. Mr. Astarin looks different from General Reiner. He is famous for his old-fashioned personality and bad temper. His whole body is wrapped in terrible mechanical armor. His crystal eyeballs shining with crimson light are embedded on the metal head. It doesn't seem easy to mess with. A disabled soldier who had undergone limb reconstitution surgery with them that night did not arrive on time today because he was a terrible disabled wounded person who was hit by an evil orc with a knife from his shoulder, and his entire arm and part of his shoulder blade were broken. Therefore, after undergoing a full-sided prosthetic limb transplant with scapula, it takes longer to recuperate. Astarin coughed lightly, causing the sounding parts inside the alchemy instrument to make a rather funny creaking sound, but no one dared to laugh out loud on the spot. You 30 people are the first batch of police officers trained by the Territory Police Department in the future. In the next month, you will need to be on duty on time every day and receive special police training. During this process, unqualified people will be removed from the team. Only those who pass will have the opportunity to serve the Lord and the people of the territory. Report. Someone shouted loudly with his hands raised. Astarin chuckled, Hey? Do you understand this reporting process of the army? Are you a veteran? Yes, sir, I am a member of the sharpshooter team before the reform. He touched the back of his head with a little embarrassed expression and raised his right palm with 3 broken fingers. May I ask, sir, I'm like this. I can really do it. Join the police department and participate in the assessment training? Astarin waved his hand and interrupted him, pulling Yurio and Max, who were standing aside, and ordering them to roll up their trousers and sleeves. You can see it yourself. You can also come up and touch it with your own hands and let them show it to you. Everyone standing against the wall immediately burst into a burst of amazement. Several people couldn't help but walk up, either holding Yurio's heavy and strong iron arm, or squatting down to observe Max's brass-colored mechanical leg. All people who are included in the police department's post list, as long as they are unfortunately disabled, have the opportunity to transplant some powerful metal prosthetics like them. Astarin raised the volume slightly and announced loudly to everyone. And, your broken limb transplant surgery was done by Lord himself. Chapter 127. Harvey took off the protective mask that was buckled on his face, took a towel handed by Reiner's mechanical tentacles, wiped his sweaty face and neck, and took 2 steps back and breathed a sigh of relief. Egno, which transplant surgery is this today? There was no sunlight in the basement, and the lighting magic stones were used as the light source. He was so busy that he forgot about time. Egno also put down the surgical instrument in his hand, looking like he was exhausted and almost fainted. It was all thanks to the mechanical tentacle that Reiner took out to hold it without slipping. Sir, I can't even remember it. Probably, maybe it was the 10th transplant surgery. Reiner turned his head and said with concern, Sir, Mr. Egno, you go and sit and rest for a while. Just leave the follow-up of this surgery to me. Although he turned his head and spoke to Harvey and the other 2, his hands and the 2 mechanical tentacles behind him seemed to have their eyes alone, and continued to complete the final work of prosthetic adjustment during the transplant operation. Egno glanced at Reiner enviously, and couldn't help but mutter, although the alchemy life is sufficient for a lot of magic, it is almost tireless and sleepless. This ability is so enviable that I can't help but make me feel jealous. Don't want to be a human being. Harvey chuckled weakly and joked, Okay, when you are seriously injured and dying one day, I will convert you into alchemy life as soon as possible, but you can place an order in advance and order it first. Your favorite prosthetic model. Whether it is gold inlaid, carved, or embedded gems, I can satisfy you, how about it? Egno was used to Harvey's casual teasing without any lord airs. He curled his lips and did not dare to answer. Although his salary was one of the best in the territory, he probably couldn't afford to buy the alchemy body with gold and treasures. Who doesn't know that the alchemy creations of the Alchemy Secret Society are expensive, and ordinary spellcasters don't have that way to get them? However, Lord Harvey is an exception. Many alchemy instruments in his laboratory, including the soul carriers of Reiner and Astarin. Judging from the appearance models, they are the most advanced models made by the Alchemy Secret Association in recent years. Egnon complained silently in his heart, "Humph, Lord is not as he said, a necromancer who is powerless and discriminated against everywhere." Harvey shook his sore and trembling arms, took a crystal test tube containing half a tube of golden liquid from Egno's hand, pulled the cork and poured it into his mouth. This is the energy recovery potion configured by Egno with the northern frost flower and soul condensing grass. Although the grade is not high, it has no side effects. It is suitable for long-term use of such a painful liver-suffering party like Harvey. In a few days, when the weather completely warms up, we must consider arranging the potion plantation and potion workshop. Harvey collapsed on the soft recliner specially prepared for him in the laboratory, weak, and ordered Egno. Egno's dream has always been to preside over and build a potion plantation. In the past, in Alea and other wizard kingdoms, he was limited by his sensitive identity, and there was no support behind him, so he had no choice. Achieve this wish. Seeing Harvey finally letting go, putting his ideal project into the territory development plan, he couldn't help but look ecstatic on his face. A magic potion plantation that has been built and equipped with a complete set of alchemy equipment and has magic devices such as constant temperature and moisture rising. Even in the Golden Forest, Lorien, only the natural caster at the level of the Great Druid have the chance. Owned. Sir, then, the problem with the potion formula? Egno asked tentatively. The potion formula has always been a thing that the power of the caster forces of all parties is strictly kept confidential and will never leak, even if it has been like him for 10 years. The caster who is dedicated to learning is only familiar with some low-level general potion formulas, and he cannot have any way to get in touch with medium-level high-level formulas. The formula of many magic potions that he has now adjusted to improve energy and enhance physical fitness is still entirely due to Harvey's free time from the caster forum by peeping high-level caster transactions. Harvey narrowed his eyes and said tiredly, "Wait a minute, build the plantation first. I will find a way to solve the recipe. No, I have to go back to sleep, otherwise I will really be exhausted and die suddenly." Harvey only felt that the two eyelids were fighting. Even though he had just drunk a recovery potion, he still felt that he could not persist. It would take too much mental power and magic to do the stitching of the soul seed. He tremblingly supported his body and sat up from the recliner, preparing to call the soldiers to help him back to the bedroom upstairs. Just as he was about to speak, Harvey suddenly felt a violent dizziness coming, a familiar and strange sense of dizziness. The sea of consciousness deep in his mind surged like a tide, quickly swallowing him up. He subconsciously wanted to raise his hand to hold something and maintain his body balance, but he did not succeed. The last scene before the sight was completely dark was the scene where Egno and Reiner rushed towards him at the same time. What's going on? Why did the adult suddenly faint? This. Reiner used the mechanical tentacles behind him to gently roll up Harvey's soft body, and helped him back to the recliner, turned his head and looked at Egno anxiously in his tone. Ask. No. I just took the medicine I prepared. Even if my body couldn't hold on, my mind could at least stay awake. Could it be? Egno was so anxious that he was sweating profusely and had a pale face. Extend your arms and quickly use healing techniques to scan Harvey's whole body. Reiner angrily said, Is it a problem with the medicine you gave to adults? Is the dosage wrong? Or is the formula wrong? There is no mistake. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 619, 1 book, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, a book. Egno's head was like a rattle. No, no, absolutely no. There is absolutely no problem with this batch of potions. I will take 1 dose of all the potions provided to adults in advance. He put away his hands that cast the healing spell and said in confusion, There is no sign of complete exhaustion of mental power, and the vital signs are also very stable, and the potion is slowly working. What's wrong with the adults? After all, Reiner experienced more emergencies than Egno. He quickly used mechanical tentacles and a recliner to drag Harvey to the energy-gathering array, took the mask used for the soul transfer experiment and brought it directly to Harvey. Plug in the energy supply pipeline immediately. Egno looked surprised and said tremblingly, "You want to charge, sir, directly? Reiner, are you crazy? Sir is just a flesh and blood body." Reiner continued to operate without raising her head, and quickly explained in her mouth, "The magic pattern of the adult body and the caster form connected to the energy gathering array are originally one. If this kind of thing is not caused by attack or poisoning, I suspect that the caster form was a spell caster form, and something went wrong and affected the adults themselves." He quickly completed the connection between Harvey and the energy gathering array, and immediately ordered Egno, "Go and call Mr. Asterin, he has more experience in dealing with these unexpected situations than us." When Asterin quickly arrived at the laboratory, Harvey was still breathing smoothly, his eyes closed, and quietly fell on the recliner. He immediately turned around and came to the magic brain instrument. He was familiar with input from Harvey in the form to hide the administrator's identity. The magic brain instrument was started as usual, but there was no familiar casting on the crystal panel. Forum interface. Asterin turned around and said to the other two in a serious tone, "The caster form is broken. I suspect someone has attacked the adults across the plane through the magic network link." Chapter 128. What's wrong with me? Harvey opened his eyes again and woke up, and found that he was in the familiar magic net space at this moment. Beside him is the positioning magic pattern that is still floating and floating, a strangely shaped polyhedral star-shaped magic pattern. This three-dimensional magic pattern, as bright as a star, still maintains continuous expansion and contraction on the surface, like a thorny ball cactus. Wrong. Harvey noticed that something seemed abnormal around him. Why did I suddenly faint and then I was pulled into the magic net space without meditation guidance? There seemed to be some unknown gaze around the phantom condensed with his mental power, and he was locking himself tightly at this moment. Moreover, these invisible gazes that lock on oneself are completely unconcealed by hostility and disgust. Someone tracked and locked Harvey through the caster form or the remaining traces he had left in the magic net inadvertently. Thinking of this possibility, Harvey felt his hair standing up all over his body. What kind of powerful enemy can find your own position in the endless magic net plane so accurately positioned and pull yourself directly into the magic net? At this moment, Harvey suddenly felt an unusual surge of magic power around him, as if he was quickly weaving into a fine fishing net and rushed towards him quickly. Harvey immediately tried to cut off the connection between his mental power and the magic net space, wanting to return to the real world directly. Bad. He couldn't disconnect, and he tried several times without giving up, but still couldn't get out. I seemed to be trapped in the magic mesh plane by an invisible lasso. A powerful pure magic energy suddenly came from the positioning magic pattern, connecting Harvey and the spiritual anchor again. Harvey immediately guessed that he was his companion in the real world, connecting his body with the energy gathering array, trying to help awaken himself. Without any hesitation, he immediately manipulated his mental projection and turned around and crashed into the magic pattern. The magic web that was approaching quickly behind him immediately turned into 3 pure white streams of light, and followed Harvey's projection and invaded his magic pattern. Harvey tried his best to manipulate the mental projection and flew towards the blue planet in the spiritual anchor. He knew that there were 3 mysterious phantoms behind him, and he was chasing him hard at this moment, and the malice that was as real as a maggot, following closely. My hometown is getting closer and closer. Harvey seemed to break through an invisible membrane. After a rapid visual transformation, he seemed to plunge into the cold water. He thrust his arms several times, and after a few mouthfuls of salty sea water, he recalled his swimming skills in the past and tried to swing his arms to swim towards the coastline not far away. Why did I fall into the sea? Harvey struggled to get ashore, with countless doubts in his heart. Looking around, I found that this was a beach that I remembered very familiar with light grey sand and stones, and a slightly turbid deep blue sea water. This was the scene he saw when he first came to the beach in his previous life. As a child who lives in inland areas and has never seen the sea since childhood, when he graduated from high school at the age of 18, he was finally taken to a beach that is not a popular attraction by his parents. What he saw at that time was like this in front of him. A scene. There is no golden and delicate beach as imagined, nor is there azure blue and crystal clear pure sea water. The weather was not very good that day. It was so gloomy that it seemed that heavy rain would come at any time. The sea water was so turbid and the beach was extremely rough. Subconsciously, he looked at himself, and found that he was naked, revealing the boy's bony and thin body, wearing a large swimming trunk on it, with a cartoon pattern of SpongeBob. A thunderous sound came, and 3 figures suddenly flashed from the sky in the shallow water not far away. They also struggled for a long time before swimming to the shore in a mess. Harvey's heart tightened, his eyes fixed on the 3 men in pure white robes, slowly approaching him. "You are the priests of the glorious church?" he asked tentatively. However, the other party was silent for a while. The 3 of them turned their heads and looked at each other. The strange man with grey curly hair in the center slowly spoke, "Is this your evil realm?" "The devil." He looked around and sneered disdainfully, "It's completely different from what I heard before. Aren't you the most popular realms of darkness and flesh?" Harvey frowned, not understanding what the other party was talking nonsense, so he could only ask repeatedly, "Why are you attacking me in the magic net? Is it the attack of the church envoy?" The shorter man on the left raised his chin proudly, "Yes, we are the church, the demon killers. After the orders of the 13th Pope, come and kill you, the superior demon who attempts to invade the real world." Everything makes sense. Someone in the church used high-level magic to lock in their magic net positioning in a unique and unknowable way, and then pulled themselves into the magic net space, trying to break his magic pattern. The form of projection destroys his soul in the magic net. But, why is the other party so hostile to him? Why do you mistake yourself for a demon? Harvey felt that he had been forced to fight back before and killed a low-level witch hunter with anonymity. It was impossible for him to shock the church's top leaders to send such a large formation to target him specifically. No mistakes, 1 post, 1 content, 1 book, 1 forum. The 3 demon slayers took steps together and slowly approached him. Harvey felt that he might not have enough time to explain the possible misunderstanding to them. Even he himself could not figure out the ins and outs of this. He immediately raised his hand and was about to release his instant 3-ring spell, the Mirror Curse. But found that there was no sign of magic surging in his body, as if he had completely lost the sense of the magic net and the positioning magic pattern at this moment. The 3 people in front of him also raised their hands to release the magic, and the 6 arms were raised to the sky, but there was no light of magic in their palms. Not good. This is an absolute forbidden magic area. The grey-haired man in the lead roared, and the 3 immediately gave up the magic attack and rushed towards Harvey, who was also stunned. Damn, the church priest and the research caster are playing hand-to-hand combat, right? Harvey cursed in his heart, and his body turned around and ran away very honestly. He had only run a few steps when he was immediately knocked to the ground by a demon slayer who caught up with him. The opponent raised his muscular arm and tightly strangled Harvey's thin neck, as if he wanted to strangle him to death by suffocation. A thunder suddenly exploded in the cloudy sky. A scream suddenly reached Harvey, who was about to suffocate and faint. He struggled to pry open the demon slayer's strong arm, but turned his head and found that the other party's body seemed to be stuck to him for some reason. Harvey's originally thin body like a teenager suddenly cracked into deep red cracks in his limbs and chest and abdomen. Countless dense and sharp teeth were revealed in these cracks, biting the spellcaster who attacked Harvey tightly, and constantly making waves of creepy chewing and sucking sounds. The demon hunter's skin seemed to be corroded by strong acid and dissolved quickly, revealing the bright red flesh and tendons under the skin. He opened his mouth and screamed, but he couldn't stop this horrible scene from happening. Another demon hunter flew over, trying to rescue his companion, but just when he touched the other's body, he was also firmly stuck together, and no matter how he screamed and struggled, he couldn't get rid of it. There was another horrible chewing, biting and swallowing sound. The 2 demon hunters who were firmly stuck to Harvey were instantly dissolved and disappeared in the cracks that suddenly appeared on Harvey's body. Harvey stumbled to his feet and suddenly felt an unstoppable nausea. He lowered his head and retched, but found that he couldn't vomit anything. The sound of thunder continued to explode in the sky. He stood up and looked at the last demon hunter, who had collapsed on the ground and twitched in fear, and slowly walked towards him. Chapter 129. In the officer dormitory of the camp exclusively belonging to the North Army, Vaughn was humming a slight tune and brushing his military boots. Duff pushed open the door and walked in. "Today is a holiday, aren't you really going out for a walk and relax?" The orc officer rubbed his hands and looked at his brother eagerly. "I heard that many of the processed food stores in the market area have been created again. New flavors of food." Vaughn continued to do the work he was doing without raising his head. "Can you stay in the camp peacefully for a day? Be more concerned about the situation of the soldiers under your command, and read more about the tactical manuals issued above." He raised his head and pointed to the swollen wound on Duff's head that was pressed against the scalp of his left ear. And the wound on your head, remember to go to the battlefield hospital to remove the stitches. The military doctor has reminded you that if you don't remove the stitches on time, you will be in progress. You will suffer in the wound then. Duff touched the wound that was still red and swollen, and grinned, no big problem, it's just scratching the scalp. He hesitated for a moment and asked, I heard that the garrison at the River Valley outpost needs to be cut by half, and only the most basic guard and patrol troops are retained. Then what tasks do we have in the future? As spring begins, the weather is getting warmer. The evil orc tribes of all sizes, large and small, flowing loosely in the ice-filled valley, drove away the herds of slaves and cattle and horses, and began to return to their hometowns deep in the wasteland. Vaughn and the others had heard from the refugees who fled back to the north in the morning that after the demons swept across the royal court of the evil orcs like lightning, they quietly withdrew their troops. These evil orcs who were forced to migrate in winter can return to their hometown safely. This means that the Northern Army, which accounts for 2/3 of the total army, will immediately lose its biggest combat target. For a long time, I am afraid that they will be able to snatch their feet in the military camp. If you don't have a mission to go out for combat, just stay in the barracks to train troops. What's the problem? But there is no combat mission. As the attacking force, we will be ridden by the group of soft eggs huddled in the territory of the Defense Army. Wayne also rushed into the military officer barracks and came to Vaughn and Duff at the same time. Let's start discussing. Vaughn glared at Wayne with a warning, preventing him from following topics about the private vague fight between the two teams. Commander Pierce said that the army belonging to the Lord must be a solid piece of the matter. If this is not conducive to unity in the future, don't yell everywhere, be careful that I will suck you too. Wayne's eyes rolled and immediately changed the subject. I heard that those survey teams who had been carrying alchemy beasts all day long were found another natural mineral vein on the edge of the swamp west of the territory. He approached mysteriously and whispered, there seems to be traces of a demon army stationed in that mine vein, I suspect. But Defu immediately interrupted him with a look of surprise, demon? Does that mean, we are likely to start a combat plan against the demon next? I have never been with these people with scales. The guys have fought, but I don't know how many magic guns they can withstand. Vaughn quickly waved his hand to stop them from continuing to discuss the topic, and said anxiously, don't yell everywhere that has not been issued publicly. Do you want to go to confinement? More than a week has passed since Harvey was accidentally pulled into the magic net space last time. According to Asterin and others' recollections, he was in a coma for about half an hour. During this period, Reiner and others tried various ways to awaken him, but none of them worked. Harvey himself knew very well that after he was forced to use that extremely terrifying and disgusting method to swallow the last demon killer who invaded his spiritual anchor, he immediately lost all his perceptions, and when he opened his eyes again it's back to the real world. This sudden accidental attack forced him to regain his attention to the mutant magic pattern and the beach in the spiritual anchor. Harvey is still unknown whether the beach that obviously simulated and restored his memories in his previous life is a certain characteristic of the time traveler. But how could I suddenly have a terrifying physical change there? It actually appeared countless strange cracks on my body, swallowing the 3 demon-slaying masters who broke in. He must find the accurate answers and clues for this question as soon as possible, and the only way to find help is the Magic Net Forum, which is all high-level spellcasters. Asterin mentioned that when he fell into a coma, the Magic Net Forum also disconnected the energy connection with the energy gathering array simultaneously, and it was not until Harvey woke up that he successfully restarted again. This is completely different from the last downtime caused by the experiment. Although it happened late at night, there were still many active members of the forum at that time. This time, the disconnection accident lasted for nearly an hour, which made them talk a lot. When Harvey logged into the forum with the code name of Administrator Turing, he immediately received several polite inquiries from members with high reputation. Master of the Burning, dear Mr. Turing, all the casters members expressed concern about the sudden disconnection of the forum a few days ago. Can you tell me if you can disclose some of the reasons? If you need the cooperation and assistance of the members, can you convene an exchange meeting as soon as possible? The legendary spellcaster's speech has always been so official and decent. Harvey actually understands the deep meaning of his message. It is probably because they think the root cause of the problem of disconnection is that they have encountered some trouble. I want to ask if the trouble has been solved, and if it will be, it affects the stability of the forum and indicates that all startup members will unconditionally support the forum. If you need their help, just talk. Subsequently, the inquiries sent by Hand of Elements and Captain Ghost were similar, but the tone and wording were more respectful and polite. After all, their caster levels and ranks were not as high as those of Scorching Lord, so they naturally did not dare to communicate with Harvey on an equal footing. Harvey sat in front of the magic brain and thought for a moment before raising his hand to reply to the legendary caster who was closely following the development of the situation. Administrator Turing, thank you for Mr. Scorching Lord's close attention. There were indeed some small accidents in the caster forum a few days ago. To be precise, I encountered a little trouble, but the problem has been solved for now. The forum is currently running well, so there is no need to worry too much. Just a few minutes after the message was replied, the other party immediately sent another reply, as if the legendary caster had been waiting for him in front of the magic brain. No mistakes, one post, one content, one book, one forum, 1619. Scorching Lord, if Mr. Turing doesn't mind my presumption, I would like to ask what happened. Please forgive my directness. After all, everyone cherishes the opportunity and qualifications to join the forum. We are willing to make a certain degree of contribution to the safety and stability of the forum. Harvey looked at the message he sent and keenly noticed that the other party had made a slight tentative move. Since the administrator's trouble would trigger a chain reaction of forum collapse, it means that Mr. Administrator himself is not as mysterious and powerful as they expected, far beyond mortals, at least not as omnipotent as gods and ancient divine creatures. However, in the end, he still expressed that the caster and himself stood on the same front and jointly safeguarded the interests of the forum. This was also a disguised expression of loyalty. This was also the main purpose of Harvey's words, to hint at the other party and correct his previous cognition. It's okay to pretend, but don't pretend too much, otherwise the longer you contact these high-level spellcasters with superior IQ, the easier it is to increase the risk of exposing your true nature. Mr. Turing is indeed a mysterious and powerful being, but he is not an omniscient god with divine authority. He will occasionally encounter troubles that need to be solved. Harvey laughed to himself, and his next role seemed very reasonable. Administrator Turing, haha, don't worry too much, they are just a few insignificant bugs. I often fall into hibernation, and it seems that Pope 13 of the Church of Light thinks this is a rare opportunity, so they sent demon slayers to try to invade the forum, wanting to take the opportunity to destroy this paradise where spellcasters can communicate freely. Chapter 130. Gories, the City of Grace, is located in the Privy Council of the Heretic Judgment Department deep underground. The 13th Pope and Cardinal Tosa Ismail stood in a hall, looking at the three giant crystal cylinders standing in the center and silently. The interior of these three artificially polished crystal columns is hollow and filled with light red transparent liquid. 3 strong and muscular men are soaked in it, and a large number of fine black tubes are inserted into the body. Connection status. And the other end of these black tubes that are like blood vessels is connected is a black crystal fixed to the bracket on the top of the crystal column. As time goes by, the black crystal is slowly fading away its original color and gradually turning into a gray and dull ordinary stone form. Uncle, have we succeeded? Ismail stared at the black crystal hanging from the crystal pillar with complicated eyes, and asked hesitantly. The old-fashioned Pope was silent, and a middle-aged man in a pure white robe standing behind the 2 men spoke first. The 3 of them are one of the most powerful demon killers trained by the court in the past 30 years. I believe they will not fail. As the supreme presiding judge of the Court of Heretics, he has complete experience in making the decision. Prediction of this action. The 3 people present knew very well that the church would take a lot of effort and resources to cultivate a qualified demon killer, select children with dark blood talents from thousands of believers, and keep allowing them to continue to be allowed to do so for 10 years, continue to take a secret medicine specially prepared by the church. This secret medicine will greatly improve their perception and positioning ability of magic network space, but the price paid is that they will lose most of the perception of ordinary people in reality and become a person without hearing, smell, and vision. Lifetime disability. The judges who are responsible for training them will use a special tactile perception method to teach them how to cast magic and polish their combat skills until they are in endless darkness and silence, holding their absolute enthusiasm for the God of Light, grow into a qualified demon killer. They will only follow the Pope's orders throughout their lives and carry out the glorious task of dedicating their souls to the Lord once, and only once will there be no return. Because before these demon slayers completely enter the magic net to perform cross-plane battles, they will be extracted from their bodies and condensed into the church's soul-moving divine stone, directly transforming the flesh and blood into a pure mental construct. No matter success or failure, they will never be able to return to the real world. At this time, we often have to pray to our Lord. The Pope was silent for a long time, and finally spoke in a low voice. Ismail bowed his head devoutly as he spoke, and began to chant the glorious prayer engraved in the sacred scriptures in a low voice. Wait! Look! Why is this happening? The presiding judge suddenly widened his eyes, pointed to the sudden change in the crystal pillar, and said in a trembling voice. Ismail looked up again and suddenly found that the bodies of the 3 demon killers soaked in the crystal pillar suddenly had flesh and blood disintegration, first the skin, then the underlying texture, and finally the internal organs and bones. All dissolved quickly like weathering, until there was no trace of existence in the light red liquid. After entering the demon net, the demon killer is indeed unable to return alive, but their bodies can often be preserved and buried as gods in the hall of the Holy Corpse under the Church of Glory. The past decades of experience in Ismail in the middle, I have never encountered such a strange scene today. We failed. The Pope also looked at this scene with a complicated expression. The soul fire representing the superior demon on the lamp of God's enlightenment has not been extinguished. Nympho. Harvey was never relieved of the beach in the anchor of the spirit, and he was a little uneasy. Generally speaking, the spiritual anchor of the spellcaster comes from the knowledge or belief accumulated by himself. These empty anchor points will only exist in various directional rune forms in the magic pattern, most of which are common symbols such as books, gems, and sharp swords, and there are also some spiritual anchors of powerful spellcasters, which will be displayed in the form of rare towers, giant beasts, and trees. Harvey accidentally saw in the form that his true identity is suspected to be a high-level spellcaster in nature. He mentioned in a private exchange that his spiritual anchor was a giant jungle bear. Like Harvey, the spiritual anchor is a huge planet that represents his origin and past. I am afraid that there has never been any in ancient times, let alone his spiritual anchor, which actually shows a strange beach in the memory of his past life. The more Harvey thought about it, the more he felt that there were too many strange things. Logically speaking, if the spiritual anchor of the time traveler will definitely undergo this degree of change, shouldn't the scene space appear be some places where he is more familiar with and has deeper bonds? For example, the old tube building that I have lived in for more than 10 years, the warm 2-bedroom home, or the small bedroom that belongs to me alone. Even the schools he is extremely familiar with, nearby internet cafes, and must visit snack streets every day. But it was the deserted beach he had only been here once and was extremely disappointed with, and he was completely unwilling to recall. If you want to completely solve this puzzle, in addition to finding the right opportunity to indirectly find out the research knowledge about the spiritual anchor from the Spellcaster Forum, you can only enter it yourself and actively explore the answers. Nympho. After actively connecting to the energy gathering array, Harvey once again entered the spiritual anchor located in the magic pattern. Fortunately, he didn't fall directly into the sea from the air this time, avoiding the torture of being choked and having to swim back to the shore. However, this time on this empty beach, there were no 3 demon slayers who had locked themselves in the magic network plane by some unknown method, so Harvey's mentality was much calmer. No mistakes, 1 post, 1 content, 1 6, 1 9, 1 book, 1 bar. Anyway, this space cannot sense and absorb the energy of the magic network. If there is any unknown danger, he can choose to leave at any time, or try to stimulate the strange cracks in his body again, and observe and study it. Harvey found that he was in his previous life when he came to the beach. He had the thin body of a young adult and was dressed in large swimming trunks. It seems that entering here will automatically change people into the appearance and state of experiencing this scene at that time. The demon slayers who invaded here would not be like this, probably because they were not traversers themselves, but only had the identity of the real world. He stood on the beach and looked around cautiously for a while, then he stepped barefoot on the rough sand and began to explore slowly along the coastline. The sea water was very turbid, and the sky was still gloomy with a rainstorm. Harvey heard the regular sound of waves hitting his ears, and he felt unusually peaceful and relaxed, and recalled more memories of this beach in his heart. A slightly larger wave hit the beach, and Harvey's eyes narrowed. He found that after the waves faded, there seemed to be something on the beach, which was brought up from the sea by the wave just now. He quickly walked closer to observe and found that 3 round and transparent crystal spheres as big as fists suddenly appeared on the beach. Harvey didn't dare to reach out and touch them directly, so he had to squat down and observe them closely. The inside of these 3 transparent spheres seemed to be filled with liquid, and a miniature baby embryo was wrapped inside. These strange embryos, which are no bigger than pigeon eggs, are immersed in an unknown liquid inside the sphere, just like real babies in the mother's womb, curled up with their eyes closed. Chapter 131. Phelan, so, is the accident that broke out in the forum because the group of church hunting dogs came to the door while smelling the smell? Son of Flame, they are not ordinary hunting dogs, they are powerful weapons used by the church to deal with assassinating high-level spellcasters in the past 100 years of battle. Mirror, I heard that in recent decades, the number of demon killers they have trained has been greatly reduced, and the alliance between the Federation and the Church has also made it clear that during the alliance, it will not send demon hunters to assassinate higher-level people without authorization. Spellcaster. Son of Flame, the Surface Covenant is not as good as a piece of waste paper. Everyone knows it better than anyone else. Are there any fewer small actions and conflicts in private? Fa done, but why did you find Mr. Turing? Didn't the Lord of the Crimson reveal that he is not a human race, but an ancient existence? Son of Flame, we speculate that we probably wanted to invade the forum and attack the caster members, but Mr. Turing noticed it and then pinched it to death. Fairholden ended his private exchange meeting in a small group on the forum, stood up and left with a serious expression, and came to the window of the study and fell into deep thought. For the mysterious and powerful Mr. Turing, this attack was just a random wave of slapping a few flies while sleeping, but for all the caster members of the forum, the significance was very different. After decades, the Church sent them to the past as the main force of the demon killer against the advanced spellcasters. He vaguely felt that it was because of the revenge operation they had plotted online against the witch hunter group some time ago that led to such a fierce reaction from the Church. If this is true, then the Self and several other forum members who led and participated in this matter would be like owing Mr. Turing a big favor. At least Fur himself would not be able to fully grasp the demon-slaying man. After all, he could not enter the magic net through meditation for a long time through long passive defense. Judging from the teacher's tone, Mr. Turing himself did not seem to take the attack seriously, nor did he take the initiative to take the credit for helping the forum members. But Fair felt that he could not be so indifferent. Mr. Turing did not take the initiative to mention it, nor could he pretend to be deaf and dumb. He had to find a way to pay something to make him interested as a thank you for the other party. When it's time to be active in the forum in the evening, contact Stormwalkers and others, ask them what they think, and discuss what they need to pay to please this mysterious and powerful forum manager who is gentle and friendly. At this moment, the great forum manager Mr. Turing, who was unaware of it, was floating in the magic net space in the form of mental projection, and was communicating face-to-face with Mr. Inner Demon who had made an appointment to meet in advance. Demon Killer? I haven't heard of this name again for a long time. The Inner Demon is still in an illusory twisted crimson figure shape, with a crack similar to an eyeball on his head. It was indeed named after a long time ago. The powerful humans of the demon-slaying man use secret techniques to enter the alien space where our clan is located, and fight fiercely with us. His voice gradually turned low, as if he had fallen into long-standing memories. However, the targets of the demon-slaying demons are generally targeting high-level spellcasters and demon clans, and there is no reason to come specifically to deal with you. Harvey was silent for a moment and spoke out his guess, so I asked you to meet, just to ask if there would be situations that would be mistaken for the same kind of devil after contacting you, after contacting a superior demon like you. He paused and continued speechlessly, after all, when those 3 demon killers attacked me, they kept calling me an evil superior demon. Now it was a bit embarrassingly silent after being a little embarrassed. Your guess, there is a certain possibility. He imitated human emotional habits and coughed awkwardly. It seems that there are indeed spellcasters who have had in-depth contact with our tribe in the past, because they are looking for us. It provides the reason for the will and creates a certain degree of spiritual connection with us. After he explained sincerely, he couldn't help but add comfortably, but you don't have to worry too much. As long as you don't contact me frequently in the real plane, you won't be absorbed by me from your own will. After a while, our connection will slowly disappear, and those demon killers will no longer be able to locate you. Good guy, it turns out that I was pickled up by the demons, and then I attracted the church demon killers who came after them while smelling the smell. This was simply a complete blame for the demons, and it was a disaster. Since that's the case, for safety reasons, I have already arranged a visit plan in the near future, so I will postpone it a little later. After I think of the method of locating the hidden magic network, I will invite you to visit. How about it? The illusory twisted crimson figure of the inner demon trembled suddenly, as if it had been hit hard suddenly, and the two of them were speechless for a moment. Harvey was a little embarrassed to get up. He is worthy of being a superior demon who controls the power of the mind. He can directly kidnap Harvey morally without tempting others' abilities. Didn't you draw a lot of willpower in my pioneering last time? The inner demon sighed, it's true, but you have to know that in the descriptions of us by all races in the real world, the words evil, bloodthirsty, distortion, and chaos may not be correct, but, greed is real. What you say is not false. Otherwise, it wouldn't have happened in the past. After being summoned into the real world, a demon tempted human countries into chaos because of greed. Harvey recalled the historical books he had read in the past and could only nod in agreement. There is no mistake. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 619, 1 book, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, a book. But don't worry, I belong to the more self-disciplined type of demon. Since an accident has occurred, I will postpone the meeting in the real world. After you find a way to hide your positioning, I will visit you. After saying these pretentious and polite words, the demon in the heart changed his mind and made another proposal that made Harvey quite interested. Since we can't go to the real world, we might as well change the location here. Haha, I just discovered an interesting place not long ago, which should be a projection of ruins of ancient creatures. He laughed and asked Harvey, how is it? Are you interested in entering that ruin with me, and maybe you will find something interesting, maybe it is a long-lost ancient history. Harvey immediately thought of the last adventure he went to the rift of the different space with the master of the burning hot and others, and the rich knowledge gains brought by that adventure, and was immediately moved by the proposal of the demon. Let me think about it for a while, after all, I just had an attack. He paused and added, if you don't mind, I would also like to invite some members of the Caster Forum to participate in this exploration, but I will inform them in advance that the harvest of exploration will be dominated by you. How do you think? The inner demon laughed and said, no problem, I'll wait for your reply. Chapter 132. Max got up early, put on his thick trainee police uniform, hurriedly bid farewell to his mother Jenner, who was also about to go out, and hurried to his new work location, the Puhuangling Police Department. In the spacious conference room on the first floor of the building, many trainees who arrived earlier than him were already sitting at the long conference table and stood by. After looking around for a week, Max sat in the empty seat next to Yurio with a familiarity. The first batch of trainee police officers recruited by the police department were about 50, half of whom were retired soldiers due to injury and disability, and a few were unlucky guys who were congenital deformities or acquired accidents like him. However, they all have one thing in common, they are all refugees from low-born northern wastelands, and none of them are civilians who fled from the southern countries. All the promises that Mr. Astarin had previously fulfilled, all disabled people completed the incredible reconstitution surgery under the personal leadership of Lord Harvey. Except for a few severely disabled people who also need to recuperate for a period of time, everyone else was adapted to the new metal limbs in a short time and quickly returned to my internship position. Therefore, the overall image of this group of police teams looks quite intimidating. Most of them are equipped with thick metal arms that look terribly powerful, or mechanical prosthetic legs with smooth appearance lines. Max also noticed sharply that a former veteran had even transformed his blind eye and installed a crystal eyeball that emitted dangerous crimson light like Mr. Astarin. It is said that his new pros eye has a special effect, and he can see things normally like during the day even on dark and dull nights, and his vision is far beyond ordinary people. This made Max, who had adapted to the powerful functions of mechanical legs, envious and wished he could also install the same pair of night vision eyes. After a while, Mr. Astarin walked into the conference room with a thick stack of paper materials, and everyone who was still talking in a low voice immediately fell silent. Yurio immediately stood up and took the information from him and quickly distributed it to everyone. Today is their work theory assessment day, and it is also an important reference indicator to determine whether they can stay in the police department to continue their work after completing the first phase of training. Max, who had been studying in a night school for nearly a year in a literacy school, naturally would not worry that he would not understand the test paper, but after getting this thin piece of paper, he was still as dumbfounded as most people. He could understand every word and short sentence above, but after putting together the test questions, he was asked to hold his pen and stay in place. What strange questions are these? For example, you are a patrol soldier. You are caught by a gangster who hostages 10 civilians and traps them in a house. You threaten to hand over his enemy and shoot the enemy to death on the spot in front of him. He was willing to release the 10 innocent civilians hostage, otherwise he would set fire to the house and die with them. It is known that the enemy of the criminal was not a real criminal who did evil, but made enemies with the other party because of personal grudges, and killed the enemy of the criminal. In exchange for the safety of 10 civilians, or reject the request of the criminals and watch the innocent be buried in the fire. How should you choose? Please use brief words to explain the reasons. This problem is simply confusing. There are innocent civilians on both sides of the territory. No one should pay his precious life because of the crazy behavior of a criminal. Although judging from the difference in numbers, killing one person in exchange for 10 people to survive may be the most suitable choice, but he always feels that if he really encounters such a situation, he probably won't be able to do it. Is choosing to let an innocent person die on behalf of others the only correct answer? The questions on the entire test paper were similarly selective questions. Max's hand trembled slightly while holding the pen, and fine beads of sweat gradually emerged from his forehead. Isn't this really meant to make things difficult for them? He turned his head and looked at Uriel, who was also answering questions. The other party was the first superintendent of the future police department, which Lord Harvey appointed. In the future, he would take over the management of the police department from Mr. Astaran. He wanted to see how this gentleman who had served in the army would deal with these difficulties. As a result, as soon as he turned his head, he found that Uriel was also turning his head to look at him, and a look of confusion and help was revealed in his eyes. The venue for daily training and learning of trainee police officers is located on a small playground specially fenced behind the police department. After completing the difficult theoretical assessment in the morning, most people looked a little listless and gathered together listlessly. Wait for outdoor training after lunch. Uriel blew the whistle to gather together, and everyone cheered up and finished the lineup. Astaran, who was standing aside, spoke, after the morning assessment, you guys who barely met the standards, starting today, we will be the official reserve police officer. Max then discovered that the intern team that was originally close to 40 people, only less than 25 were left behind, most of whom were retired soldiers who had undergone limb reconstitution surgery, only himself and another young man, a commoner from ordinary origin. The outrageous exam in the morning seemed to be not a joke on them, it would really eliminate some people. In the next 2 weeks, you will all live in the police dormitory behind the police hall and receive special training. Just like theoretical assessment, those who pass the qualifications will stay, and those who fail will be eliminated directly. I and your temporary Captain Yuri and I will be the same as those who fail the qualifications. Oh, will you personally be responsible for this special training, do you understand? Then Yurio also stood up, spoke briefly, and then began to arrange the dormitory allocation for everyone. Max took off the dark grey uniform that he had worn for a week without changing and put on a brand new uniform of the same style that had just been issued. He immediately felt a lot warmer. The style is exactly the same, but the new uniform is made of thick leather on the surface, and a layer of cotton lining is sewn inside. It has the warmth and wear resistance of leather clothes, and the softness of cotton clothes. This uniform alone, if placed in the convenience market, may be worth half a month's internship salary for Max. No mistakes, 1 post, 1 content, 1 6, 1 9, 1 book, 1 bar. He also keenly discovered an interesting phenomenon. The uniforms of soldiers and officers in the army are all dark black, the uniforms of officials in the city hall are dark blue, and they become dark grey when they arrive at the police department. Although the styles and shapes of the three are basically similar, the colors are consciously distinguished. Max naturally likes the police uniform he wears more. Although the color is not as eye-catching as others, the shoulders, collar, and cuffs are embroidered with silver silk stripes, which looks very eye-catching and fits very well. He looks energetic when wearing it, and even can't help but hold his chest higher when walking. Yes, this improved police uniform looks more suitable for you. Astaran looked at the people who had completed the dormitory allocation and uniform change, and smiled with satisfaction. There will be no additional training courses today. After you have dinner in the restaurant, you can move around a little freely, but you must gather for roll call before lights out. Tomorrow, your next stage of training will officially begin. I hope all of you are ready to meet the challenge. Chapter 133. The long winter that lasted for 4 months finally came to an end after the last thin layer of snow melted. This also means that the northern wilderness is about to usher in the spring when everything revives, and the fertile land can be sown and plowed for the new year. Most native wilderness people do not have the habit of celebrating the new year. For them, the transition from winter to spring is often a life and death moment when they cannot get enough food. Many frail old and young people cannot survive until the land thaws and they can dig cassava to fill their stomachs. These human refugees and orc herders who live at the bottom of the wilderness food chain have an average life expectancy of less than 40 years old, and are even inferior to the lowest landless hired farmers living in the warm southern border. This is also the first winter in Max's life that he can eat well, wear warm clothes, and have a stable home. On the streets of the residential area, the snowmen built by children have melted to the point that only the base remains. There are still many children who dig up the remaining snow covered with mud and roll it into balls to throw around, making the whole street full of laughter and playfulness early in the morning. For adults like Max, the melted snow is very annoying. It will make the cotton shoes damp and moldy, and the soaking into the inside will make the entire sole of the foot frozen. In the past days, most of the refugees would probably huddle in the earthen kill pits they dug before winter, shivering in tattered animal skins, and worry about the snow crushing the kill pits and burying themselves alive. Max recalled the past while subconsciously stamping his feet to shake off the mud on his shiny leather boots. Fortunately, he was wearing official leather boots, otherwise he would suffer a lot just from the daily routine patrol mission. In the winter, people in Pioneer Territory clean up the snow on the streets every day, sweeping them to both sides of the street with big brooms made of branches and wooden poles. This is a long-term temporary job issued by the municipal center, with daily salary. Even elderly people with slightly more flexible hands and feet can barely cope with it and get a hot meal. The closer to the municipal district and the factory area, the more pedestrians there are on the street. Most of them are wearing thick cotton or leather clothes, rushing to their jobs. Max likes this lively scene very much, and even his patrol steps are much lighter. He quickly completes the first round of daily patrols according to the established route. Next, he needs to go to the refugee shelter set up by the city hall at the north gate of the territory wall to assist the municipal staff who stay there every day to maintain basic order at the city gate. When Max arrived at the north gate, more than 100 people had gathered at the city gate. Under the shouts of armed soldiers, they lined up in several long lines and slowly approached the refugee shelter with wooden sheds to conduct the first round of identity inspection and information registration. Report. Police trainee, Max Anton is here to assist. A young officer who was shouting with a tin horn in his throat hoarse waved at him, and pointed to the shelter closest to the city gate, signaling him to help quickly. You are responsible for maintaining order in the team, and then help the doctors in the medical hospital to distribute anti-epidemic drugs to them one by one. You must watch them drink it in person, and never neglect it. The official in charge of registering the refugees' information was also busy and hurriedly called Max, a fresh force, to join his work group. Got it. Max felt that this job sounded not difficult at all, just like when he first came to the territory, the soldiers held guns and directed them to line up to receive oatmeal porridge. He walked to the checkpoint and started shouting loudly like the officer, while pulling out the baton from his waist and waving it. Trainee police officers were not allowed to carry guns, so they only had this wooden baton in their hands that was polished very smoothly and was their only weapon. Max felt that its power might not be as strong as his own light kick, and the damage it caused would be greater. Name? Where are you from? Do you have any survival skills? Every refugee in the queue would be asked by the staff of the municipal center and then recorded, but they would basically not ask whether they could read unless the other party took the initiative to ask, because the illiteracy rate of the wasteland people was infinitely close to 100%. Max had even seen half-orcs who couldn't even count. This was only the first round of shelter review. After they entered the temporary refugee shelter area near the city wall, there would be further review and verification. It was said that there was a team with rich interrogation experience among the soldiers of the Defense Army, who were responsible for this work. My name is Hook, a deserter, I'm good at farming, and I can't read. The official in charge of registering information was stunned for a moment, raised his head and repeated, farming. After seeing the other party nod, he quickly drew a circle on the form. Okay, you passed, go over there to gather and wait. Max happened to be standing aside and heard this brief conversation. He couldn't help but look at the man wearing an animal skin cloak and found that his animal skin cloak looked very new, without mold and holes. It looked like it was just bought from the ready-made clothing store in the convenience market. Wait. He spoke subconsciously and stopped the man who was about to leave. What's wrong? Max stared at the other party's slightly flickering eyes and asked in a deep voice, Wastelander? Can you farm? Which evil orc tribe are you a serf under? The municipal official in charge of registration raised his head in confusion. Don't ask about these in the review process, right? As long as you know how to farm, no matter which tribe he is. Max shook his head and continued to ask regardless of the matter, after spring, in what month should the stems of cassava be sown into the soil? How long will it take to grow before harvesting? There is no mistake. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 619, 1 book, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, a book. The other party hesitated for a moment, but still did not answer. Max had pulled out his baton and approached his body. A farmer from the wasteland can wear a reindeer skin cloak of such a good texture. You don't seem to be guilty of long journeys. He grabbed the other person's hand and pinched his wrist joint hard, forcing him to release his fist and display his palm. The people in the wasteland don't have frostbite. We have been digging food on snowy land all year round, and we have long adapted to this temperature. Now the city officials also heard something was wrong and shouted to the soldiers not far away, and cooperated with Max to press the man to the ground. However, the other party gritted his teeth and pulled his hand back, turned his head and shouted at several people behind the team, "Run quickly!" Max swung his baton and slammed him heavily on the other party's back, knocking him down with a bang, then lifting his mechanical prosthetic leg and stepping on it. No matter how hard the other party struggled, it was useless. Seeing this, the 4 or 5 refugees at the end of the team immediately ran towards the city gate without looking back. Several soldiers raised their guns and ordered them to stop, turning a deaf ear. Then the soldiers had no choice but to shoot, hit their legs, and quickly put several people to the ground. The magic gun was too powerful, and all of them were directly broken, with broken limbs and blood. It splashed all over the ground, scaring the refugees nearby burst into screams. The scene suddenly became chaotic. Chapter 134. The bloody and cruel scene caused by the defense soldiers blatantly shooting the fleeing refugees, causing a riot among hundreds of refugees gathered near the shelter site. More soldiers of the defense army surrounded him with weapons, but screamed and scolded at the scene, and the situation gradually became a little uncontrollable. Many refugees began to run towards the city gate because of fear. Max found that the young officer holding the iron trumpet was stuck in the periphery by the crowded crowd. He was so anxious that he couldn't squeeze and even sweating. He almost wanted to remove the gun on his back several times, but he couldn't bear it. Shoot at these terrified crowds. He stepped forward and kicked his leg suddenly. The mechanical prosthetic leg made a crisp sound of parts running in. Max immediately jumped high, flew directly into the crowds of people inside and outside, and landed next to the young officer. While the other party was stunned when he opened his mouth wide, he grabbed the other party's weapon belt and pulled him out of the crowd. He would not help him. After he was squeezed to the ground, he would be very likely to be the chaotic crowd trampled to death. "Give me the horn." Max grabbed the iron horn from the other party's hand, leaned against his lips, pulled the most proud loud voice of the wasteland people, and began to scream. "Quiet! Quiet! Don't move everyone, squat down! Or wait for death!" Many people in the chaotic crowd witnessed his terrible action of jumping up high above the crowd, and also watched his weird mechanical iron legs, and slowly squatted down with fearful eyes. "Don't be afraid, I am also a wastelander like you. I was just taken into the territory a year ago. Soldiers will not hurt you at will. The situation just now is because we have mixed up with criminals and spies. Those damn southern people disguised as our identities and came to compete with us for their jobs." If Harvey himself was present and heard his violent argument, he would probably have given him a thug on the spot and scolded Max as a stupid pig with regional blackness. But at this moment, these words just came to the hearts of the refugees present. The most annoying thing about the people of the wasteland, besides enslaving and oppressing evil orcs, are the people of the southern border who fled from the south to the north and robbed food from their mouths. Although everyone is doing a miserable life, the truth that peers are enemies runs through the whole process. Listen to me, fellow countrymen. You are all like me. After receiving the news, you come to join the Lord and ask for a way out. The pioneering leader can provide you with a warm shelter for wind and rain, and you can fill your stomach. Food, and you can get a generous salary with hard work. These are real, absolutely no deception. Look at the leather jackets on me and my shoes. These are good things that can be obtained by just working, as well as meat porridge and soft bread. I was sitting next to the fireplace at home this morning, enjoy such delicacies. Goodoo, someone suddenly swallowed his saliva, and more people's shriveled belly sounded. Although Max talked a lot without any logic, it obviously touched the hearts of everyone present. Fear and panic gradually dissipated, and refugees were successfully transformed into hunger and desire because of the unrest and worries caused by the riots just now. Just queue up to register according to the rules, honestly explain your origin and identity, and go to the refugee shelter area later. There is a tent that can be settled for the time being, and lunch is hot meat porridge and soft wheat cakes. Before formally signing the contract and starting work, the food for 2 meals a day is free and will last for half a month until they are recruited by various production departments and moved into cement houses with low rent. Nympho. Asterin led Max to the Lord's castle. Harvey, who was sitting behind the desk, realized that the other party was a familiar face that had been undergoing a broken limb reconstruction surgery. I heard that the refugee riots at the city gate today were the first to discover the problem and then stabilize the situation. Max, with a passionate look on his face, knelt down on one knee and said, "Yes, Lord." Harvey put down the book and continued with a smile, "Tell me, how did you find something wrong with the person who was hiding his identity and trying to sneak into the territory?" Max tried hard to control his excitement and reported his thoughts at that time. "What a keen observation. I remember that Egno once saw you leading the people for the discriminated orcs." Max's face turned red and he lowered his head embarrassedly. It turned out that he was recommended to enter the police hall because he was accidentally told by Lord Egno of the medical hospital that day, and watched the scene of using the defense army to play cleverly. "I have a sense of justice, a keen observation, and my body, well, after surgery, I am also very strong." Harvey smiled and said to Asterin, "I am a good seedling for being a policeman, and the best one is the kind of person who is the best." He turned his head and looked at Max again and asked, "Are you single or have family?" "I also have a mother, she works part-time on the farm. She is old and can't get a long-term work contract." Harvey nodded and greeted a city official who was guarding the side, saying, "I am very satisfied with this young policeman's performance today. People like him who have specialties and advantages should not live at the lowest level with their family." In the rental house, he pulled a piece of white paper and scrubbed a note with his signature. "Ask the official in charge of population registration and housing allocation at the municipal center to rearrange a 2-story house for the police officer and his family. I believe that the current salary of this young gentleman is fully capable of paying the rent. Besides, I remember that the police officer seems to have an additional housing allowance. No mistake, 1 sentence, 1 post, 1 content, 1 6, 1 9, 1 book, 1 bar." Max was stunned, and immediately went from kneeling on one knee to kneeling on both knees. His body and voice trembled slightly at the same time, as if he was trying to suppress his excitement. "Lord, thank you for your kindness and generosity." Harvey winked at Asterin, who immediately understood and pulled Max up from the ground. "Don't relax because of this. Maintain this precious sense of justice and your vigilance. Guard the pioneer territory for me and prevent and capture all criminals who want to destroy the stability of the territory." Max's eyes were slightly red, and he nodded heavily in agreement, and then followed the municipal official out of the Lord's study. Just as he reached the door, he suddenly remembered something, stopped, turned around and summoned up the courage to ask the Lord. "Lord, what is the final correct answer to the last question on the test paper?" Harvey laughed out loud. "Is it the question about the gangsters holding hostages and setting the house on fire?" He raised the corner of his mouth and said jokingly, "There is no absolutely correct answer, and the key to passing the test is not whether the answer is correct or not. I personally marked the test papers. As long as there are no typos, the sentences are smooth, and you can have your own ideas. I circled them and counted them as qualified." Chapter 135. After Max left, Pierce, who had just dealt with the chaos in the city gate, hurried back to the castle. "Sir, I have initially interrogated these guys with doubts." Pierce handed the interrogation records in his hands to Harvey. "These 8 arrested refugees are all from the southern border." Harvey took the record and glanced. 3 are from Grizzlies, and the rest are from DOS. "Can the confession be true?" With the spitting potion prepared by Mr. Egno, and with some of my little tricks of interrogation, they became honest after only 10 minutes. Asterin answered, "Can it be the small move made by Earl Fagin of Grizzlies?" Harvey shook his head uncertainly. "Because of the previous conflict with me, Count Fagin was jointly investigated by the Nobles' Parliament and the Federation. At this moment, he is probably already in the capital of St. Valen. He is trying to find someone to mediate for him. I'm evading the crime, and after I sent a sniper to shock him with assassination, I shouldn't have the courage to come and get into trouble again." He paused, and then bent his fingers and knocked on the desk. but if he did not show up, it does not mean that he could not spread rumors about me into the noble circles of the capital of St. Valen, those stupid and greedy nobles. There was reason and motivation to arrange some mice to scramble into my territory to find out what they wanted. These spies and rats who were involved in the refugees did not actually pose any threat to Harvey. He rarely left the Lord Castle and laboratory. Even if he had to go out occasionally, he was surrounded by at least a dozen loyal guards. Several guard alchemy beasts that no relatives recognize. Even if the other party really finds a way to get a magic gun and hides in a hidden place and fires a cold gun at himself, his innate bulletproof holy body will make the other party come back in vain. This group of refugees who came to surrender to the territory will pay special attention to the city hall officials. Harvey said to Asterin, let the police department cooperate with them and secretly pay attention to their movements. I want to know they are how to get involved in the refugee group. Yes, sir. Asterin and Pierce bowed and responded. Pierce's face looked a little gloomy. They were obviously very dissatisfied with the performance of their defense soldiers in this chaos. They were not as good as one who had just joined the police department. Rookie police officer. There is no need to be too harsh on the municipal officials and soldiers present. They also follow the procedures, but they just lack some experience in dealing with this situation. Nympho. After dinner, Asterin returned to the castle. Sir, the general situation has been investigated. The majority of these refugees escaped from the wasteland, but their original migration destination was to cross the Divine Ridge Mountains and reach Worcestershire on the border of ERS, but they were driven away by the nobles there. Have to return to the north. On the way back, there were many tax evasion serfs and poor people who were originally from the southern border who joined this refugee team. These rats and spies probably got involved in the crowd at that time. Asterin asked tentatively, Sir, why not give up this group of refugees? Drive them out of the territory so that there will be no more trouble. Harvey immediately shook his head and refused. No, 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 no matter how many people the damn nobles have inserted into it, we need to spend how much time we can pull them out, and we cannot drive away the refugees who came to surrender. He spread out the simplified map of the northern wastelands he studied and drew with Pierce during this period. There are many refugee settlements near the south on the wasteland, which are now more or less circulating, and my pioneering and sheltering refugees, providing shelter and food. If I drive away these refugees who come and seek refuge from thousands of miles away, once their experience is promoted, no one will be willing to come in the future. Harvey is neither short of money nor food, nor is he short of cement houses that can be quickly built in half a month, but he lacks a large number of working people, providing a steady stream of cheap labor for the industrialization of his territory. By the way, you choose a few smart guys from the newly promoted police officers, the kind of shameless ones, and get into the shelter camp of this group of refugees. Asterin asked in confusion, is this, we will arrange the manpower in turn and lurk in the refugee group? Harvey smiled and said, of course, in the work of investigating crimes and arresting criminals, the police department cannot follow the formal procedures in a straightforward manner. It is useless to just wear conspicuous uniforms and wave sticks and shout loudly. When necessary, learn to, anti-reconnaissance and anti-submarine. You can call them, plainclothes police. Nympho. It was late at night, but the officers' conference room in the defense camp was still brightly lit. Pierce sat on his head with a gloomy face, staring at the dejected guard officers below. Tell me, today you arranged for soldiers to cooperate with the city hall to shelter refugees at the city gate, which was a shameful situation. A battalion commander who was on duty on that day stood up with a red face and hesitated to explain the specific situation that happened during the day. City hall officials are responsible for the identity review and registration of refugees, so you all just hold guns and are you stunned like a stupid donkey there? The Lord once said that the Defense Army does not need to go out to fight at the risk of life and death like the Northern Army. Your battlefield is in the territory and within our own homeland. There is no mistake. 1619, one book, a book. I want you to cheer up and protect the safety of your territory and Lord like you protect your family, and never let a damn mouse come in and make trouble. Pierce became more and more excited as she spoke, and her palm slapped the conference table. Now, a young police officer who was temporarily arranged to assist you will perform 100 times better than you. In the future, in the work of territorial defense and investigation, you will be waiting for the people of the police department to ride on their heads. Lick their soles. The officers of the defense army blushed, and some people secretly clenched their fists under the table without saying a word. Everyone was not convinced. The defense army was already a group of experienced veterans from the Northern Army who participated in the encounters in the valley at any time. Now a police station with their functions has been established in the territory, which can be said to be just to be bullied. A young and energetic battalion commander finally couldn't bear it, raised his hand and said, "Mr. Commander, what should we do next? I heard that the police department is preparing to arrange some police officers to the recently received refugees and put those the abominable rats and spies were found out. Can we also participate in this operation?" Pierce breathed a sigh of relief and said slowly, "I have brought my daily defense and patrol work to the point where I can raise my strength. This is your most important job, and I cannot let go of it at all. As for catching spies and rats, you naturally need to cooperate with the police department." Pierce remembered the trick of fishing enforcement that Lord Harvey casually taught him when he was in the castle during the day. You have to deal with this matter from two perspectives with the people from the police department. Simply put, one party sings blushing and the other party sings blushing. Chapter 136. After making an agreement with the spiritual hunter Mr. Demon to explore the remains of ancient creatures together, Harvey immediately logged into his forum account, directly found the members he thought were relatively suitable through the form of single chat, and issued an invitation to explore the remains. His first choice invitation target is naturally to hate evil and dare to reel offline witch hunters, and the Son of Flame who directly fights directly by the church. According to Harvey's judgment, he obviously favors a group in the forum with a Federation background, and Fa Shield, Scarred Lord and others should have a close relationship. The second person who wanted to invite was the neutral position, but he provided free assistance to him many times. In several subsequent exchanges, Harvey had discovered that the other party mistakenly thought of himself as an independent alchemist. Identity, so I gave a lot of help unconditionally, which is quite trustworthy in this regard. It is not advisable to carry out cross-plane adventures in the magic net. There are not too many people. Everyone is active in the magic net in the form of mental power projection. It will also cause unknown dangerous changes due to mental power fluctuations. Although in terms of strength, the two legendary spellcasters Scarring Lord and Shadow Knight in the forum are actually the safest in terms of safety. However, Harvey's small trumpet has not had much social interaction with the other party on the surface, and rashly speaking, it is easy to arouse the other party's suspicion, let alone the newly joined Shadow Knight who is obviously at the core of the Evil Moon Mountains at this moment on the battlefield. I'm afraid I won't be able to take time to roam the magic web. Harvey did not really trust this adventure invitation from the Soul Hunter. It is extremely unwise to take the initiative to deliver his safety to a demon in a different space. Shoes. So he prepared many backup plans in advance to deal with the possible dangers of this expedition. After you enter the magic web plane, the body of the real world will be directly connected to the forum server 0 and at the same time, with the help of the energy pipeline connection, you can use the planetary energy gathering array at any time. The stored magic net energy releases a powerful attack energy beam. At the same time, he will directly carry the magic pattern to roam this magic web. In this way, if he encounters an unexpected situation where he cannot disconnect his spiritual connection and returns to the real world, he will plunge into his spiritual anchor and use the strangeness to the beach triggers visions against unknown dangers. Harvey chose the time of this adventure at midnight, the stage with the most intense death energy in the magic net, which can also enhance the perception between himself and the magic net plane. Nympho. Punctuality is a virtue that should exist in all intelligent lives. The inner demon showed a distorted projection in the demon net, and he praised Harvey who was on time. There are two spellcasters who are on the way to meet at this moment, let's wait a moment. Harvey had informed the other two in advance that the operation was led by the forum member Mr. Mindhunter. Although everyone has tacitly understood his identity as a foreign race, since Administrator Turing came out to endorse, no one will take the initiative to stand up and oppose it. Anyway, the forum is not all human spellcasters. In profitable situations, short-term cooperation to gain benefits and reasonable distribution is the most preferred. Even if the two tribes in the real world have a feud, they can wait until they return to reality before making a move, and one code will be restored to the same code. Harvey and the inner demon waited quietly for a moment, and then they saw three streams of light gathering together in the dark plane space in the distance, rushing towards themselves quickly. Finally, he stayed in front of the two and condensed into a dark red and two silver-white human-shaped mental projections. Why are there three? I remember I only invited 2 forum members. Harvey was a little alert, not sure who revealed the news of this operation, and invited the extra without permission from others. Helper. The Crimson Projector took the initiative to speak, and said with a quack smile, "Don't be surprised, the gentleman in the mirror is originally 2 people, ha ha ha, I also found it funny at the beginning, but it is indeed the case." The 2 silver-white projections then explained in unison, "I'm sorry that I didn't explain this issue in the forum in advance, but we are twin brothers, so the magic patterns and projections in the magic net both exist in the form of twins." Harvey was stunned for a moment, and he never expected this to be the case. After all, he had never heard of it before. The magic pattern of twins is also a twin form. After all, the 2 brothers have the talent of casters at the same time, and they can both be promoted to higher level casters. The situation is simply an exception. The inner demon didn't mind at all, and then smiled gently, "Haha, it turns out that twins are twins, which is simply too interesting. It seems that you must move forward side by side in the magical way, and no one can do it. You can't leave anyone behind. It must be Mr. Inner Demon who can speak." Harvey couldn't help but complain secretly. The Son of Fire was still impatient and immediately interrupted the topic and began to urge, "Okay, let's discuss the next risk. Since this operation was led by Mr. Mindhunter, we need more information." "Haha, actually, I discovered the ruins by accident. I have conducted a simple exploration around them, but the fluctuations of mental power faintly revealed in the ruins can basically be judged that they should be suspected to be ancient creatures on the magic web plane nest projection." As soon as he spoke, the other 3 high-level casters were silent. The projection of the ancient creature's nest ruins is completely different from the projection of the ancient spellcaster's ruins. Ancient spellcasters often built fortresses or magic towers, and used special energy matrices to deeply connect the buildings of their own real planes with the magic network, so as to continuously absorb the magic network energy and maintain the defense or research operation of their own magic towers. This has led to the fact that although the age is long, the traps or defense methods in these ruins are traceable, and can be analyzed and destroyed in many ways, thus giving later generations the opportunity to venture in and obtain precious heritage. No mistakes, 1 post, 1 content, 1619, 1 book, 1 bar, take a look. However, the projection of the ancient creatures' nests has no rules at all. It is often formed because the powerful creatures died in the nest due to lifespan or other unexpected reasons. The many magical properties in the corpse and the uncontrolled mental turbulence before death accidentally opened up the connection channel between reality and the magic network space, resulting in such a relic projection. If it is confirmed that it is the remains of ancient creatures, then the risk factor will increase exponentially. The 2 twin mirror figures thought for a moment and judged in unison. "That's why I'm interested. After all, such dangerous relics also prove that no one has ever set foot in them before, and there should be a lot of good things in them." The Son of Fire was full of confidence. Harvey guessed that this should not be the first time he participated in the adventure of exploring such relics, and his evaluation of his ability increased by a few points. The Inner Demon suggested cautiously, "Danger is bound to exist, but as long as we suppress the greed in our nature, don't go too deep or stay too long, I don't think there should be too much of a problem." Harvey couldn't help but roll his eyes silently in his heart. Before, this demon gentleman had claimed that the essence of his demon family was greed. Why did he start to persuade others not to be too greedy now? He was just trying to set up a character, right? He really wanted to carve the word self-discipline on his forehead to promote it. Chapter 137. Harvey and others did not waste too long at the coordinates of the meeting, and soon turned into several streams of light condensed by mental power, and flew towards the target location with the Spirit Hunter leading the way. The distribution of energy pipelines in the magic network space is completely irregular, but if a vacuum zone appears somewhere, it means that there is a very likely cracked channel that is connected to the real world or different space. And this is exactly the vacuum area they are now in. The 5 people carefully flew to the edge of this vacuum zone and used mental perception to replace normal perspectives for observation. Because Harvey secretly accommodated the magic pattern of the body into his projection, he could easily scan this vacuum area directly with the help of a powerful spiritual anchor. At 10 o'clock in front, there is a hidden space crack. It should be the entrance to the ruins, right? As soon as Harvey spoke, the Son of Fire immediately turned to look at him, with a little surprised tone. "I didn't expect that Mr. Kel'Thuzad's mental power perception was so powerful that he found the entrance so quickly." He actually had a little doubt in his heart. Didn't the Quinn brothers keep saying that the other party is a wild alchemist? How could he show his abilities like a high-level arcane spellcaster? As we all know, the best person among all spellcasters to perceive and control mental power is the arcane spellcaster who majors in astrological magic. The soul hunter nodded slowly and said, "Yes, I have roughly found 3 naturally occurring rift entrances in this ruin, but the one Mr. Kel'Thuzad had found is the closest to us." The Son of Fire immediately said, "Then what are we waiting for? Everyone, prepare to enter the rift." After he said that, he turned to look at the silent brother in the mirror and urged, "Hey, I'll say you two conjoined babies, let's put it in the end. Your fellow eaters took it out to do business." The brothers in the mirror laughed softly, and 2 closely connected projections looked at each other, and then each transformed into a semicircular metal sphere from the phantom, floating out of the chest, and finally formed into one. A silver smooth ball. The ball was suspended in the air for a moment, and immediately shot out like a shell, drilling into the space crack at a speed that was unobservable to the naked eye. Harvey's heart moved and guessed that this thing should be the same as the last time the Master of the Burning Hot and others were used, and it could be a high-level magic weapon that could be brought into the magic net space by the user, and should have the function of detecting dangers. How is it? What's going on inside? It's strange. I've never seen such a nest ruin, but I haven't sensed the danger for the time being. We can enter first. The person in the mirror finished speaking in unison, flying towards the crack without looking back. Harvey and others followed and threw themselves into the hidden space crack. Nympho! It's such a colorful world. This is the sigh that Harvey sincerely exclaimed from the bottom of his heart after entering this rift. But here is slightly different from the real world. All colors seem to be several times thicker, and they are weirdly spliced together in very inconsistent and matching forms. For example, the ground under your feet is not the brown-gray color of normal soil or rocks, but a large area of rich fluorescent green, mixed with some irregular color blocks of bright pink. Damn, I really wish I could be color-blind at this time. The Son of Fire stood on the ground, and after looking around for a week, he couldn't help but complain. The colors in this space are too complicated. Normal people only need to stay for a while, and they will feel dizzy because of their vision being impacted by strong colors. The Soul Hunter sighed softly at this time. I can probably guess what ancient creature here is the remains of the nest left after the death of the ancient creature. Harvey heard the faint sense of disappointment in his tone and asked quickly, "Mr. Mindhunter, do you know the source of this ruin?" "Well, I have heard of it in the past. Look at these rich and colorful color blocks in this space." He waved his twisted slender arms, dug up a large piece of fluorescent substance from the ground, and shook his hands to let it go. It drifts away with the wind and turns into a cloud of glowing fine dust. Colorful sub-dragon. After this creature dies, the divine traits belonging to the ancient dragon clan in its body, and the energy residues brought by the magical creatures will gradually change the surrounding space form over time. The 2 people in the mirror reached out at the same time, picked up a fluorescent substance from the colorful stone pillar next to it, stuffed it directly into the gap in the suspected mouth that was transformed from the phantom's head, and made a strange chewing sound in public. Harvey was stunned. "No, this is a strange crack in the strange space. Why do you just pick it off and stuff it into your mouth?" "Well, I think Mr. Spirit Hunter is right. All the substances here are rich in invaded magical energy. It seems that the death of this colorful sub-dragon is too long, and its remains should not be left behind. What is valuable to us?" The Soul Hunter said with a little apology, "I'm sorry, I didn't think about it before providing information on this operation. I didn't expect there was no value here worth our risk." The Son of Fire shook his head and turned his head unwillingly to ask the person in the mirror, "Conjunctival baby, have your soul magic weapon not searched for the location of the remains of the Yelong? Let's go there to try our luck, maybe there will be some gains." Harvey chose to remain silent and did not raise any opinions. He had never heard of the name of a creature like the 7-colored Asian dragon. He had no idea what valuable things would remain after the death of this ancient dragon-like creature. It was the best choice to not speak and expose his ignorance. While everyone was talking, the metal sphere drew an arc and returned along the barrier at the edge of the space. The brothers in the mirror immediately stretched out their arms and made direct contact with the sphere. "The space here is not large. Fly forward for about half an hour to the location of the remains of the Asian dragon. However, that thing has almost weathered and dissolved. Let's go and take a look." Everyone quickly passed through a colorful and dazzling area and came to the remains of the legendary 7-colored Asian dragon that had long been extinct. No mistakes, one post, one content, one book, one forum. This was the first time in Harvey's life that he truly saw the true appearance of the so-called ancient dragon creature. Unfortunately, it was not a living dragon, but the remains of a subspecies dragon that had decayed and disintegrated for a long time after death. However, one could still see the terrifying pressure of the dragon creatures through the huge skeleton of the creature, which was comparable to half a castle. There were still a lot of mottled and rich color blocks on the scattered and disintegrated dragon bones, especially the skull part that had been broken into several pieces. The rich color blocks were infecting and merging with each other, and seemed to flow slowly as if they were alive. Harvey felt dizzy after just staring at it for a few seconds. It was really an abstract and strange scene. The inner demon slowly approached the remains of the dragon, stretched out his twisted arms to touch the broken skeleton, and let the already broken and shattered bone fragments fall one after another. From the degree of corruption, the time of death can be traced back to at least 1,000 years ago, which was the heyday of the dragon clan. This dragon should have died of natural weakness after old age. After the dragon clan reaches adulthood, a dragon crystal will naturally form in their bodies. This thing is like the magic pattern of other short-lived spellcasters. It is the core for them to store energy and release their innate abilities. The dragon crystal will reach maturity when a dragon is in its prime, which also means that the dragon has officially entered the peak period of strength. Both its physical strength and innate abilities are at their peak. After entering the aging period, the dragon crystal will gradually shrink and dissipate like their juvenile bodies, until they truly enter eternal death, and the dragon crystal will disappear with their lives. Even I only had the chance to learn about dragon crystals from some precious magic books. It is said that they are used in the production of legendary magic tools and the rituals for high-level spellcasters of certain factions to be promoted to legendary. The Son of Flame sighed, expressing great regret for not seeing this legendary precious magic material with his own eyes during this exploration. Dragon crystals are impossible to exist in the natural remains of sub-dragons that died of normal aging. The chance of dragon crystals left in the bodies of dragons that died accidentally or were killed is also very small. After all, dragons are creatures that ordinary people cannot easily deal with, and there is no reason for those who can really kill them not to take away this most precious harvest. Chapter 138. Harvey and others used mental scanning to search the not-so-large sub-dragon nest of the alien space again, and finally had to accept the result of nothing except the rotten keel in front of them. The man in the mirror flew around the sub-rock bones and said in unison, "Although you can't imagine the dragon crystal, these powdered dragon bones are actually good magic materials. Haha, the bloodline potion prepared by the giant dragon bone powder is comparable to those big road goods that are made of mutant monster bone powder are much stronger." Harvey, who was cooperating with Egno to prepare for the magical medicine plantation, felt aroused his heart and immediately asked politely, "Two gentlemen in the mirror, the talent activation potion of the bloodline knight actually needs to use giant dragon bone powder." The Son of Fire sneered and said disdainfully, "Ha, how could those guys have such luck? The dragon has been extinct for hundreds of years. Modern blood knights can only rely on the formula for the beast bone powder." He looked at the huge bones like a hill and added regretfully, "What a pity, we are in the magic net plane and can't take away too much bone meal, unless we can find its real coordinates in reality location." The person in the mirror nodded in agreement, then looked at the silent soul hunter. "This adventure was initiated by you, but we did not encounter any dangers or accidents, nor any losses, so you will get it. Decide how to allocate." The mind hunter immediately manipulated his projection and bowed gracefully, politely, "It is precisely because of my negligence that everyone wastes time exploring a worthless ruin, and I will not participate in this trophy distribution." The Son of Fire curled his lips and said directly without caring, "There is nothing else to distribute except this bone. Just take some of it separately. Anyway, it's not a rare thing." After saying that, he closed his palms at the giant dragon bone from the air, and two huge mental forces directly bombarded the already decaying dragon bone, slapped the crumbling pile of bones directly. Harvey wondered, in the form of mental projection, it is indeed impossible to take away too much bone meal in a single time, but if we do it a few more times, can we take them all away in batches? The person in the mirror explained with a smile, "The bones will be broken down at a faster speed after they are crushed. When we return here in half an hour, we may not even be able to see the scum." The Son of Fire also laughed, "You guys who have been promoted to higher levels at a young age have mastered too little of these ancient magical knowledge." After saying that, he used his mental power to wrap a ball of bone meal the size of a head, and said goodbye to the rest of the people directly, turning around and flying away from the remains of the nest. The person in the mirror gave a few thoughtful words to teach Harvey how to preserve and use these giant dragon bone powder after returning to reality. After receiving Harvey's sincere thanks, he also wrapped a ball of bone powder and left quickly. Mr. Kel'Thuzad, I'm going to say goodbye too. Collect bone meal as soon as possible, don't wait for it to dissipate. The inner demon also bowed slightly to Harvey with apologies and left. Advanced spellcasters are always so realistic that they run faster than anyone else once they find it unprofitable. Harvey breathed a sigh of relief, standing alone in front of the pile of bone meal that could not be pulled by several carriages, and suddenly couldn't help but laugh. When Egno was preparing for the potion botanical garden, he also specifically mentioned to him that most rare pot cultivation requires nutrient soil made of flesh and blood or bone meal of magic creatures and monsters to assist. It can play a good catalytic role. The better the materials used, the stronger the harvest and efficacy of the potion after it matures. I don't know what kind of catalytic effect can the nutrient soil prepared with giant dragon bone powder play on magic planting. Harvey stopped the unreasonable association and manipulated his mental power, and contained the pile of bone powder in front of him at the speed of siphon into his huge spiritual anchor in an instant. The bones were swept away. Hey? What is this thing in the bone meal pile? As the bone meal was sucked into the spiritual anchor for temporary storage, several strangely shaped grey-white particles suddenly appeared at the original location of the giant dragon bone skeleton. Harvey approached in surprise, gently twisted one with the mage's hand and put it in front of him to observe. These off-white particles are not in the shape of round beads, but are regular prism-shaped structures like polyhedral dice. Could this colorful sub-dragon that died naturally also suffers from a chronic disease like some kind of stone? I can't care about so much, anyway. I will take it away and return to the real world to do research. Nympho. After returning to the castle laboratory, Harvey didn't care that the night was getting dark, so he quickly called Reiner, who was assembling the alchemy beast to spend time, took several pieces of sterling silver metal ingots, and used a high-speed wire saw to cut them evenly into thin pieces. Silver pieces. Mr. in the mirror specially reminded him that the bone meal of the dragon needs to be stored in a container with sterling silver gaskets attached. Otherwise the magical substance stored in it will pass away quickly. While helping Harvey install and modify the storage box, Reiner looked at Harvey in surprise as he manipulated the anchor of his spirit, showing a lot of grayish-white powder, and stopped the work in his hand and was stunned. Sir, you went to Magic Net Space and you brought back a bunch of dust. Harvey put silver pieces on the storage box without raising his head and urged, this is not an ordinary ashes, this is the ashes of dragon creatures after death, and it is an important thing for our potion planting. If that guy Egno knew, he would probably have to be so happy that he would jump up to the roof. Harvey also thought of a plan to immediately activate the communication device and summon Asterin, who also does not have to sleep and does not have to rest and handle affairs in the study office at night, to the laboratory. Sir. This is this. Asterin just approached the pile of bone meal and immediately discovered something wrong. He was surprised and happy, and asked in disbelief, this is not, it is keel powder. There is no mistake, 1619, one book, a book. Harvey smiled and explained, yes, this adventure of Magic Net, not only did I encounter any danger, but I also made a fortune. Hehe, those good things that high-level spellcasters cannot take away. I've searched them all. As an ancient wizard with rich knowledge reserves, Asterin naturally knew how to store these precious materials, so he hurriedly stepped forward to help modify the storage box together. Tomorrow, call Egno and ask him to use this bone meal to mix the nutrient soil of magic plants. Our potion plantation will soon have a large number of materials to harvest. Asterin was stunned for a moment and asked Harvey blankly, what? You want to use such a precious thing to plant those cheap herbs for that guy Egno? This is simply a waste of resources. He straightened up, pointed to the pile of bone meal in front of him, and explained anxiously, do you know, if the pile of bone meal in front of me was used to adjust and activate bloodlines in that era, it would be enough for you to use it to make the natural medicine for activate bloodlines in my life. Have hundreds of powerful blood warriors. Even most high-level ancient wizards can only cultivate dozens of blood warriors as their entourages. Asterin used his fingers to argue with Harvey. The main reason is that it is because due to the main material of the potion, the dragon is extremely powerful and difficult to easily hunt. If it is replaced by ordinary monsters, it will greatly limit the efficacy of the medicine. The bloody warriors cultivated cannot be promoted independently and can only hover in the low-level stage. When Harvey was in the Along's nest, he also heard the man in the mirror and the son of flame mention it casually, but he didn't know the difference between the two at all, so he didn't take it too seriously. Is there such a big difference between the talented potion prepared by the giant dragon bone meal and the ordinary monster bone meal? Asterin said excitedly, of course. Ordinary use of secret medicine to activate talented blood warriors will only stimulate low-level talent abilities and will not be promoted for life, but if you use ancient formulas and giant dragon bone powder to prepare the potion, you can cultivate it. The bloodline knights that came out can also be promoted from a low level, and finally even touch the legendary level, just like those warrior families that already have bloodline inheritance. Your loyal soldiers and officers are the most suitable targets for training blood warriors. Chapter 139. Pierce, the highest commander of the pioneer army, arrived at the Lord's castle almost at the same time as Egno, who came to hear the news. The two received news from Reiner and Asterin in advance, and immediately started a fierce dispute over the distribution of giant dragon bone powder. Mr. Asterin is right. Such precious magic materials must be consumed in the purpose of cultivating powerful soldiers. It is a waste to consume them in planting magic potions. Humph, what do you know? Rare potion materials will play an important auxiliary role in adult magic research. Moreover, Pierce, don't forget that the potions your soldiers drank were all made of potions. Modulated. Pierce, who was pale and bloodless, snorted coldly and retorted, the pioneering leader needs powerful armed forces to guard, and also needs strong soldiers to go out to expand and plunder resources for the development of the territory. These are all based on the advantage of war. Pierce seemed to be talking endlessly, but in fact, the words he said were copied by Harvey's theory instilled in him, but it was enough to scare Egno, who had no political insight. As soon as he got up and walked to the door of the study, he heard Pierce talking loudly, and couldn't help laughing. Okay. Don't argue with you two. Harvey walked into the study and pulled the two of them away from the tit-for-tat pair, sat back to the desk, and took out 2 copies of the information he had sorted out last night. Here, I have already made plans for how to use giant dragon bone powder. He knocked on the table and said seriously at Egno, the plan for the potion plantation remains unchanged, but I need you to use this part of the bone meal to cultivate certain rare magic plants, such as the ancient bloodline provided by Asterin. The materials required for the Knight's Gift potion, and the list of potion materials I have listed in this plan. Egno was still very satisfied with the fact that he could get a part of the bone meal to use in his plantation, but when he thought that most of the bone meal would still be consumed in the cultivation of potion materials for the gifted potion, he still glared at Pierce indignantly. Harvey turned his head to look at Pierce, who was eager to try again. You understand this by training the blood warriors. Seeing Pierce nodding obediently, Harvey continued, I need you to select a group of soldiers and officers with outstanding loyalty and combat experience, with about 50 people, to participate in this training plan. Pierce quickly asked, Sir, are you going to form them into a combat team alone? Well, this group of soldiers will become an independent special operations team in the future, completing some difficult tasks that ordinary soldiers cannot achieve for me. When you choose, try to pay attention to the equal attention of the Defense Army and the Northern Army. Don't be biased when drawing. Harvey has heard of the conflicts between the two factions that formed after the army divided the internal and external systems. In this regard, Pierce and others would not have any cover for him. Harvey was originally encouraged by this kind of benign internal competition, but he should not be too indulgent. Once this contradiction lasts for a long time, it is likely to intensify and deteriorate, and the two armies of the Defense Army and the Northern Army will become, if you become an armed interest group that Harvey cannot control, it will be a big trouble. Therefore, gradually integrating most of the senior officers and veterans of the two armies into the training plan for blood warriors is the most rewarding solution for Harvey. Because of activating the innate abilities of a bloodline warrior, there is an extremely important key point among the ancient secret techniques and corresponding formulas used. The blood of the blood feeder is required to perform the final transformation ritual. In Harvey's perception, this is like a large group of people's blood recognition ceremony. All warriors who have taken bloodline potions and transformed through secret techniques will form a deep bloodline connection with the object of presiding the ceremony, that is, the bloodline owner. This is also an effective means used by ancient wizards to control their powerful bloodline warriors. The same blood and the same origin, never betrayal. According to the ancient ritual process described by Asterin, the warrior entourage who completed the bloodline transformation will also be given a name by the wizard who became their master, and the original surname will be changed to the wizard's family surname. However, the flaws and weaknesses of this ritual are also obvious, that is, if the wizard himself dies, the warrior who is of the same origin as his blood will also be exhausted from the body. At the least, it will become disabled, and at the worst, it will be killed suddenly. This is also why these blood warriors will fight to the end without hesitation when the wizards they recognize their master are in danger. The transformation ceremony, what will happen if it fails? Pierce couldn't help asking after hearing Harvey's description. Harvey smiled slightly and comforted, "Don't worry, the soldiers you trained carefully will not be in danger of their lives. At most, they are physically weak and need to rest for a while. Also, you can take some Ignan-made recovery agents so that you won't leave any incurable roots." Pierce breathed a sigh of relief and immediately said seriously, "Sir, I applied to participate in this bloodline transformation plan." Harvey stopped the pen in his hand and looked at him with surprise. "Ah? Are you going to participate in blood transformation?" "Pierce, you are already a blood clan, and you have inherited the bloodline inheritance of Asterin, and you don't need to be any more. I expressed my loyalty to me in this way. There is no mistake. 1619, one book, a book." He then stood up, walked to Pierce, patted his shoulder and comforted him, "The trust and friendship between us do not need to use this cruel blood confinement ceremony to prove it." Pierce hesitated for a while, then whispered, "A few days ago, Reiner mentioned that he used to be a pariah and did not have the qualifications to have a surname. You immediately promised to let him use your family surname." Harvey was immediately at a loss whether to laugh or cry. Is this guy jealous of Reiner? But what is the matter with the two of them being jealous of their surnames? Why does it feel weird? I'm not a noble. My family declined as early as my grandfather's generation, and surnames are not respected. Harvey is a typical unlucky guy who went bankrupt right after crossing over. Not only did his parents die, but his family fell into decline. He had to sell all his land and real estate to barely raise enough money to study at the Spellcaster Academy. However, he also understood why people of this era attached so much importance to surnames, which represented status and class, just like ordinary people's desire to become extraordinary spellcasters. Fame and power are always the ultimate pursuit. He held back his laughter and punched Pierce in the chest. "If you want to get a noble surname, it's not easy. Go find your mentor, Asterin. He comes from a noble ancient wizard family, and his surname can be traced back hundreds of years. Asterin has always cultivated Pierce as his own descendant." Chapter 140. Based on the formula of ancient blood potion provided by Asterin, Egno used precious giant dragon bone powder to catalyze a batch of needed potion plants, and then combined with Harvey to prepare a quantity of about 50 servings. According to Asterin's recollection, when he was living in the Northern Wizard Kingdom, he had the honor of observing the transformation ceremony of a bloodline warrior in person, but only about 30 people participated in the transformation, and the final success rate was less than half. He speculated that the reason for this is that there are certain differences in the physical constitution of the reserve candidates, and on the other hand, the younger the target candidate, the higher the chance of success. Based on his experiences, Harvey temporarily changed Pierce's selection strategy, limiting his age to the group of young soldiers and officers under the age of 25, and avoiding the waste of precious potion materials. "Sir Pierce, why did I exclude me from the list? Am I inferior to Duff and Wayne?" Vaughn pushed open the door of Officer Pierce's office and asked with an extremely aggrieved expression. Pierce sighed and explained slowly, "Choose candidates for bloodline transformation, not just depends on their abilities. Vaughn, you are 27 years old this year and just stuck on the line that has been screened." The orc turned red and widened his eyes, and said in disbelief, "It's just that I'm 2 years older, so I'm not qualified? But I'm willing to sacrifice my life for Lord Harvey. Please, add me to the list." He paused, his eyes continued with red eyes, "When I was discriminated against and suppressed in my territory, the adults stood up to preside over justice for me. Everything I have given to you today is given by the adults. Please let me give me the opportunity to gain the glory that is the same as the adult bloodline. Sir Pierce." Pierce shook his head helplessly, unable to stand the humble pleas of his veterans, so he could only comfort him, "Okay, I'll go and ask you." But I can't guarantee that the transformation ceremony of 50 people will be divided into 2 times. If there are too many people who fail for the first time, the adults may consider agreeing to let you fill in the second round. Vaughn was ecstatic when he heard this and rushed to Pierce's desk to pinch his superior's hands to express his gratitude. Suddenly, he remembered that the superior, as a blood clan, did not like to contact people physically, and he hurriedly withdrew his hands. After listening to Pierce's retelling, Harvey felt it was funny and touching. After participating in the blood transformation, he completely lost his spiritual freedom and was controlled by the owner throughout his life. I thought they would be afraid of participating in the ceremony. But I didn't expect it. Asterin interrupted with a smile. I didn't expect that the veterans who joined the territory militia first regarded this ceremony as the supreme glory you gave them. They almost went straight to the military camp because of the quota. Try the dog's brain. Pierce also felt honored by the loyalty of the soldiers he had cultivated himself, although Lord Harvey clearly rejected his request to participate in the transformation ceremony. Many officers and soldiers from wastelands came from privately inquire about whether they could really get the glory you gave to your family's surname after the ceremony was completed. These guys without surnames now have a little status and property. I began to look forward to these false names. Harvey lifted his forehead helplessly and glared at Asterin. It was all because this guy deliberately spread the transformation ceremony to the army, portraying this matter as an honorary reward he gave to the loyalists, which led to these soldiers and officers. Compared to gaining bloodline talent, we value these virtual things more. This is naturally a way to rule over subordinates and win over people's hearts. It is 100 times more open than those nobles and magic politicians. The bloodline potion has been prepared. Asterin, you will be fully responsible for the follow-up preparations for the transformation ceremony. I plan to carry out the first batch of conversions in 3 days. Pierce and Asterin bowed at the same time. Yes, sir. In ancient wizards, the most important step in the transformation ceremony of bloodline warriors was to complete the bloodline connection between the owner and the warrior through a ritual with magic contract effect, and finally let them take the transformation potion at the same time. In the ritual of bloodline resonance, instantly complete the activation of bloodline talent. Harvey carefully asked Asterin whether he could predict these transformation candidates in advance and what kind of talent abilities would he awaken, but the answer he got made him unsatisfied. The awakening of bloodline talent abilities is a random lottery that relies on luck. It cannot be predicted in advance or made directional choices. Harvey recalled the previous forum casters who joined forces to revenge against the church witch hunters. The Bloodline Knight, who was regarded as the main target of elimination, was a former Judgment Army Knight with the ability to forbidden demon bloodline. But this bloodline ability is extremely rare. Unless it comes from an ancient knight family with the same bloodline, the probability that ordinary people want to awaken this ability is probably smaller than if Harvey wins 5 million if he buys a lottery ticket. More common bloodline awakenings are mostly common abilities such as Furious, Giant Force, and Fast Healing. Harvey lowered his head and looked at the list of candidates submitted by Pierce. The last row outside the 50, specially circled out an additional candidate with red ink marks, the half-orc Vaughn, who was 27 years old. Pierce couldn't stand this guy's begging and was forced to open a back door for him. Harvey also found it a little funny. There is no shortage of potions, so it is okay to add him. It depends on his own luck and luck. 3 days later at noon, a group of tall young soldiers stood neatly in line at the first floor hall of the castle that was cleared in advance. Although the Lord and Chief Consultant who presided over the ceremony had not been present, no one whispered to each other. Everyone tried their best to raise their chests and looked at the second-story entrance leading to the Lord's residence with their eager anticipation. The 2 alchemy beasts guarding there must be melted on the spot. The first person to go downstairs to the hall was their commander Pierce. He looked stern and looked like he was doing business, and coldly threw out a command. Everyone took off his tops and leather pants, and only wore his lower body shorts. Everyone immediately started to take off their uniforms in a neat manner, and placed them neatly beside them according to the daily routines in the army, and then sat down cross-legged on the spot with their chests naked. Pierce looked at the clock on the wall and added viciously, during the transformation ceremony later, no matter what happens, you are not allowed to make a fuss, let alone wet my crotch on the spot. If anything embarrassing will happen, when you return to the camp, there is no mistake. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 619, 1 book, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, a book. Yes. Sir. Everyone responded in unison. Vaughn also sat cross-legged in the team, his hands shaking with fists on his knees slightly trembling, but he tried his best to hide his inner excitement. Lord must have learned of his loyalty and desire, and even mentioned him directly from the second round of transformation to the first list of transformation candidates. He was almost so excited that he couldn't sleep during the past 3 days, and he was constantly distracted and dazed in his daily training. While he was eager to perform the transformation ceremony immediately, he couldn't help but worry that his failure to achieve his transformation was caused. The soldiers sat silently for about a quarter of an hour, and the Lord Harvey finally came to the hall with his consultant Asterin, Municipal Chief Reiner, and the Medical Director Egno. "My soldiers, today is the day for you to carry out the bloodline transformation ceremony and awaken your natural abilities." Harvey stood in front of everyone and said to everyone with encouragement words, "Today, it is also the time for me to complete the bloodline connection with you, and truly the days when you become a kinky blood relative in the sense." As soon as he said this, many soldiers who had listened quietly to the lecture immediately shook slightly. Some of them turned red, while others gritted their teeth and suppressed their excitement. Harvey paused, expressed his satisfaction with his thoughtful speech, and continued, "From now on, you will not only be my soldiers in my arms, but also my reliance and my blood brothers." After hearing this, more than 20 military officers and soldiers sitting cross-legged in the hall immediately knelt on the ground, with their foreheads tightly pressed against the ground, and according to the ancient bloodline transformation ceremony that Asterin secretly instructed before, allegiance to the owner. The slogan was shouting hoarsely, "From today, we will be the main one of Lord Harvey. The bloodlines are of the same origin. Swear to be loyal to death. Never betray." Chapter 141. Harvey stood quietly in the center of the ritual formation drawn by Asterin himself, holding a small silver dagger. More than 20 selected soldiers sat cross-legged around him, forming a double-layer circular formation. On each of their bare chests, there were extremely complicated ritual inscriptions and lines drawn. These lines representing the blood connection eventually converged at the heart of their chests. Asterin wore an ancient wizard robe that was hastily made, holding another slightly longer golden ritual dagger, and cut a small cut on the right arm of each soldier. And told them to put their palms on the formation on the ground, so that the fresh blood from the wound on the arm could flow and smear it. There was a faint smell of blood in the air, mixed with the strange aroma of the ritual spices specially prepared by Egno after burning, which made Pierce, who had a sensitive sense of smell, couldn't help but shrug his nose. "All soldiers, listen up. Take the blood potion immediately, don't waste time." The soldiers all picked up the crystal bottles placed beside them, raised their heads and poured the potion into their mouths. The hall was filled with the sound of swallowing. "My lord, the preparatory preparations for the transformation ceremony have been completed." Asterin stood up and reported to Harvey, who was standing in the center of the magic circle, "You can start the transformation. What you need next?" Harvey nodded patiently, and according to Asterin's instructions, he gritted his teeth and used a silver dagger to cut a small cut on his palm. He frowned and squeezed out several drops of thick blood, and sprinkled them in the center of the formation. The moment the blood dripped, Asterin began to recite spells continuously with a heavy metal friction sound, resounding throughout the castle hall at an extremely weird and uncoordinated frequency. Harvey listened carefully for a while and found that this was a very ancient language, which was somewhat similar to the pronunciation of the ancient giant language, but it was completely different in some pauses. It seems that the common method of blood awakening today is not entirely derived from the blood transformation ritual of ancient wizards. It seems that many key ritual processes have been simplified and improved. Where did these ancient wizards learn this method from? Dragons? Giants? Or other intelligent races that have long been extinct? Harvey pondered while subconsciously following Astalin's instructions, using mental power as a guide to activate the ritual array. The complex array on the ground instantly glowed with a faint scarlet light, and Harvey's blood dripped on the core of the array slowly flowed and rolled along the drawn lines and lines. This small ball of blood followed the lines on the array. Every time it passed a soldier in the array, it would split a thin, almost invisible blood thread, along the soldiers' palms pressed on the ground, and quickly flowed along the lines on their bodies into their hearts. The first soldier who absorbed Harvey's blood suddenly began to tremble slightly. He gritted his teeth as if he was enduring the pain, and still tried to keep his palm pressed to the ground. A layer of fine sweat began to emerge from the soldier's naked upper body, and then the sweat seemed to be instantly evaporated by the sudden high temperature of the body, and a faint hot steam rose. The young soldier blew a stream of hot air from the tip of his nose, and finally couldn't help but want to groan, but the moment he opened his mouth, he unconsciously uttered a strange tone from his mouth. The sound that came out of his mouth was exactly the same as the spell recited by Asterin. As the ceremony continued, more and more soldiers had the same situation, and everyone uttered a completely strange tone from their mouths that was completely unhuman, faintly forming a frequency resonance with the spell in Asterin's mouth. This chanting sounded like a sonic attack, making Harvey, who was standing in the center of the magic circle, feel a little dizzy. He shook his body slightly, and felt that the voices of these soldiers seemed to resound in his mind at the same time. "My lord, please hold on for a moment." Astalin said loudly to Harvey, "Please use your mental power to try to connect with the voices in your mind." More than 20 young soldiers chanted low and magnificent spells uncontrollably at the same time, like a tide constantly hitting Harvey, who was standing in the center. It was unknown how much time had passed. When Harvey kept using his mental power to distinguish the overlapping sounds that poured into his mind and tried his best to guide the connection, the sound of the spell chanting finally stopped. He subconsciously turned his head to look at a soldier closest to him, and the soldier seemed to sense his gaze and immediately looked up and looked at him. The other party did not speak, but the voice of this young man suddenly rang in Harvey's mind. "Sir, we succeeded." In the ritual formation formed by the crowd, about 7 or 8 soldiers were lying on the ground with their bodies tilted and fainted. Egno and Reiner, who had been waiting nearby, hurried forward and fed the unconscious soldiers the potion they had prepared in advance, and then ordered the guards at the door to carry them to the next room for a rest. They didn't make it through the ritual, but they won't be in any danger of life. They will just feel weak and powerless in the near future. Asterin sighed, but he didn't feel sorry. The success rate of this ritual even exceeded his original expectations. A total of 18 soldiers and officers successfully completed the blood connection ceremony with Harvey. No mistakes in one song, one post, one content, 1/6, 1/9, one book, one bar, one look. They looked in good condition. Apart from their red eyes, their body temperature was hotter than ordinary people, and their sweat was constantly evaporated. There was no other discomfort or abnormality. Harvey looked around and looked at the group of steaming strong men around him without saying a word. He asked in surprise, "Is this okay? They have awakened their blood talent." He turned to look at Asterin and asked a little embarrassedly, "Why are they all suddenly mute?" Everyone stared at me without saying a word. "It's so strange." Astalin laughed, "Sir, this is the sequelae of the transformation ritual. They have just experienced the connection with your bloodline and mental power, temporarily lost their language ability, and will recover soon." He raised his hand and patted a young soldier beside him, explaining patiently to Harvey, "They are like chicks breaking shells at this moment, and they will only subconsciously get close to you. This is from the same source of bloodline. The attraction. You can try to use your mental power in your mind, communicate with them, and give instructions to them." Harvey nodded and tried briefly to prevent the soldiers from surrounding him. Sure enough, they reacted immediately and sat down cross-legged again, but their eyes were still burning with burning eyes. How long will it take for them to return to normal? It's really strange now. I don't want to be followed by them when I take a shower and wash up at night. Reiner, who was responsible for assisting Asterin in the ceremony, couldn't help but laugh and said, "Sir, just hold on for a while, and wait until they escape from the strange state of spiritual and blood resonance, it's fine. Then when will we know what type of blood talent they have awakened?" Egno came over and asked curiously. "After tonight, after they have completely digested the blood potion, they can start testing their talent abilities." Chapter 142. Vaughn turned over and sat up from the ground, and used the slight skylight of the castle through the huge glass window, and squinted at the huge clock hanging on the wall. It's 4 o'clock in the morning and it's going to dawn in 2 hours. But Vaughn couldn't sleep anyway. Yesterday, under the auspices of the chief consultant, their soldiers completed the bloodline connection ceremony with the adults and took the magic potion to activate their innate abilities. The adults were worried about their physical condition and allowed them to spend the night in the lobby on the first floor of the castle to allow them to observe everyone's condition at any time. Vaughn didn't think there was anything wrong, except, at the moment the ceremony ended, he would unconsciously want to get close to the adults and unconditionally obey the adults' orders. He tilted his head and thought for a while, and then realized that something was really wrong with him. In the hall with such dim light, I can actually see clearly at a glance that the pointer on the clock dozens of steps away can also clearly distinguish the scale above. Vaughn vaguely felt that his sudden appearance of supervision must be directly related to the awakening of bloodline talent. He shrugged his nose gently and smelled a faint stench coming from beside him. Duff! Why are you so smelly all of a sudden? Vaughn kicked Duff, who was lying on the soft carpet with his upper body barely on the soft carpet, and asked in a low voice. Duff turned over and sat up, scratched his head in a daze, and shook his nose. Damn, I obviously took a shower before the ceremony yesterday, what's going on? In the darkness, Vaughn clearly saw that his brother's naked body was covered with black mud, and a sour smell floated at his nose. Get out quickly and find some water to scrub it well. Your body smells like now. If the adults come to visit us after dawn and smoke him, I will twist your head off. Duff rolled and crawled with his uniform, and ran out of the castle in his pair of shorts, shocking the 2 guards who were watching the night at the gate. Who is the naked man who just ran out? I don't know, are they the soldiers who slept on the first floor tonight? He smells so smelly. Nympho. Harvey sat casually on the backrest chair covered with soft fur, looking at the dozen soldiers neatly lined up below. They had just experienced the awakening ceremony of blood talent yesterday. Asterin coughed lightly, nodded slightly to Harvey, indicating that he could start the talent test. Next, the guy who I called him came forward. Northern Army, 1st Battalion 2nd Team, Captain Wayne. Come. Wayne thrust his chest, stepped out, and walked to Harvey. Asterin handed a short metal stick covered with seal inscriptions in his hand to his hand. As I direct my instructions, you can guide the blood power in your body, and try to pass them into the secret short stick. Take your time, don't worry. Wayne nodded in a vague way, clasped his short staff tightly as he said, closed his eyes and began to try. Soon, everyone saw the short staff he held in his hand. The inscriptions began to slowly emit a light red light. These lights were not dazzling, but a burning temperature could be felt from a distance. Asterin glanced, lowered his head and wrote a few lines of words on the record book in his hand, and then announced loudly, Bloodline Talent Burning Enlightenment. He turned his head to analyze to Harvey, who was sitting in the upper head, and said, the blood warrior who awakens this talent has the ability to give any metal weapon to scorch in high temperature. This is a powerful attack talent. Harvey nodded with satisfaction, raised his hand and greeted Wayne with an excited face, Soldier, come forward. Reiner brought a delicate wooden plate to Harvey at the right time. Harvey stood up, pretended to tidy up the collar of Wayne's uniform, then took out a black crystal-carved badge from the wooden plate and stuffed it into Wayne's con's palm with his own hands. Wayne Floyd, you are already a qualified blood warrior. Don't let my hope down, and this last name. Wayne was greatly encouraged and immediately knelt on one knee and kissed Harvey's back on his hand, imitating the knight's canonization ceremony to swear allegiance to Harvey. The other soldiers who were still waiting below were jealous, and their original javelin-like standing postures were slightly loose. Next, North Army, 1st Battalion 4th Team, Captain Tommy. Vaughn only felt that the short waiting time was like a year. When he finally called his name, he felt like he was a different life. He also walked forward and held the metal short staff as he did before, then closed his eyes and began to try to guide his bloodline. But he couldn't feel any special energy or traits in his body. He stood there for several minutes without any reaction. What's going on? Why haven't my bloodline power appeared yet? God, hurry up. Quick. Vaughn was so nervous that he felt sweat as big as beans on his forehead, but there was no movement in his body, and the short staff in his hand was not responding. There is no mistake. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 619, 1 book, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, a book. Just when he was anxiously not sure what to do, a gentle voice suddenly appeared in his mind, and he gently guided him, don't be nervous, relax, stretch your body, and concentrate your mind and your heart. Yes. It's Lord Harvey. Lord Harvey is in my mind and gives me encouragement and guidance. Vaughn felt that his whole body was full of strength again, and all the tension and decadence were swept away. He could feel his heart beating strongly at this moment, and a strange power seemed to spread through his blood vessels to his whole body, and was carefully guided to his arm. The inscription on the metal short staff finally slowly lit up. Hey? Something is wrong, his talent turned out to be. Astalin's deep red eyes suddenly lit up, and his eyes were burning at the short staff in Wayne's hand. Harvey also stood up curiously and cast his eyes over. The short staff first lit up a grey-black dim light, and then it went out in an instant. Then the whole staff seemed to be corroded and weathered, shattered and disintegrated, and rustled along Vaughn's palm, turning into a pile of dust and falling down. Vaughn felt something was wrong, opened his eyes and looked at his empty hands with horror, standing there at a loss. Dark blood. The secret method is above. He awakened the dark blood. Asterin couldn't control his emotions and murmured repeatedly with a trembling voice. Harvey also asked in doubt, dark blood? Are there any side effects? What are its abilities? No, dark blood has no side effects, it's just extremely rare. Asterin sighed and explained, I have only seen descriptions of this blood in some classics in the past. Its innate characteristic is annihilation, and the effect is what we just saw. Harvey walked up and patted Vaughn, who was sweating profusely, and smiled, that's not bad, right? This ability is very similar to some of the caster's corrosion spells, and it is also very aggressive. Asterin smiled bitterly and added, my lord, when he activates and releases this ability, he does not distinguish between enemies and friends. As long as it is touched, whether it is flesh and blood or metal and rock, it will instantly decompose and collapse. This means that he cannot hold weapons normally to fight, and can only use this ability through physical contact. Harvey heard the hint in Asterin's words, but he didn't care. There is no useless ability, only useless ability users. He turned to look at Wayne and kindly said, did you hear that? So you need to control your abilities more skillfully than others, and don't hurt your companions and comrades by mistake. Your abilities are lethal, so you must learn to use them with caution. He turned around and took a crystal badge from Reiner and handed it to Wayne, who was in tears. Then he smiled and said, Wayne Floyd, don't let me down, don't bring shame to this family name, do a good job. I'm counting on you. Chapter 143. So according to the test, the abilities of these 18 soldiers who have awakened their blood talents are. In the study, Stalin and Harvey discussed the various talents that the soldiers awakened in this blood transformation ceremony. In addition to the common weapon enchantments of burning and ice, there are also 2 blood abilities that strengthen themselves, namely, Great Strength and Rage, which are very suitable for single soldier combat. In addition, several soldiers have awakened the auxiliary ability of Rapid Healing. This ability does not need to be actively released, and is always activated at any time and anywhere. It can even allow their bodies to purify themselves and expel some hidden injuries, blood stasis, and disease filth that were originally left in the body. Duff, who rushed out of the castle in the middle of the night, is a typical example. Among this group of people, only 2 have awakened relatively rare blood talents. A young captain named Tommy awakened a rare talent called Weakness Insight, which can instantly see the enemy's flaws and weaknesses in battle, and respond quickly and attack in a targeted manner. Harvey thought that this was a talent skill tailor-made for professions like snipers and assassins. As for the half-orc named Vaughn, whose dark bloodline, Annihilation, was awakened, Harvey always believed that it was not a rare but useless talent as described by Stalin, but he had not yet figured out how to use this ability. Do these soldiers and officers need to be withdrawn from the original army to form a separate combat team? Harvey thought for a while and shook his head, not necessary for the time being. After all, they are the backbone of the army. If they are suddenly withdrawn, there will be a gap in the original army structure, which will affect the morale and combat effectiveness of the army. He paused and added, on weekdays, let them perform their duties as soldiers and officers normally. We only need to gather them regularly and conduct special training on their talents. Asterin nodded in agreement, and then said, the natural mineral vein we found in the swamp area is suspected to have traces of demon soldiers' activities. Do you plan to let this blood warrior team serve as the advance team? Harvey couldn't help but secretly complain in his heart that nothing could be hidden from this smart ancient blood clan. Yes, that's exactly what I meant. Ordinary soldiers can defeat the evil orcs by crushing them with firepower with their magic guns, but the demons are not as vulnerable as the evil orcs. He stood up and walked to the wall where a simple map of the north was hung. He raised his hand and pointed at the circled mineral vein on the edge of the swamp. It's less than 3 days' march from here to the Pioneer territory. If there are signs of demon activities, it will be too threatening for us. Tell the city hall to post a notice, so that those who like to travel long distances to collect food and hunt near the Green Water Swamp can go to the Green Water Swamp too. Don't try to go near there in the near future, I don't want them to have any accidents. Harvey stretched out his hand and tapped the mark on the map. If there are really traces of demons here, I suspect that this is probably a natural magic stone vein, or there may be other rare magic minerals. That means that it is completely worth our effort to occupy and plunder. After 2 rounds of blood transformation ceremony, 30 officers and soldiers finally successfully awakened their blood talents, but no rare blood appeared again, which made Harvey quite regretful. There were about 20 soldiers who failed to awaken, and Harvey did not ignore them. He asked Agenor to prepare a potion to restore blood and chi for them to take, and asked Pierce to convey some encouragement to them, and also issued a part of the special allowance. Ordinary people can only have one chance to awaken their blood in their lifetime. If they take the potion and fail to awaken in the ceremony, it means that they will never be able to obtain this extraordinary power that mortals desire so much. Tommy poked his head out from the upper bunk and whispered to Vaughn, who was concentrating on reading on the lower bunk, "Captain, Mr. Astalin called you away alone during the Blood Warrior training course today. Did he give you some special training?" Vaughn was having a fierce mental battle with this advanced vocabulary textbook at the moment, and didn't want to pay attention to the smart guy Tommy on the upper bunk at all. He rolled his eyes and didn't say anything. Duff also came over from the next bed with a smile and squeezed together with Vaughn. "Hey, tell me. What special training? Is it the magic tonic prepared by Mr. Egno himself?" Vaughn finally couldn't bear it anymore and said angrily, "What magic tonic? Where did you hear that nonsense?" Tommy was hanging outside the railing of the upper bunk, and his head was about to hang down to Vaughn's lower bunk. After awakening his blood talent, no matter what ability he gained, his body's flexibility, speed, and physical strength would be greatly improved, far beyond ordinary people. With Tommy's current core strength, he could easily hang upside down in the air even if he only hooked one leg on the railing of the upper bunk. Vaughn grabbed Tommy's neck and pulled him down from the upper bunk. "Stop performing acrobatics here, come down." He looked around and found that other roommates who had awakened their talents were also looking at him with bright eyes and expectant faces, so he could only sigh helplessly. "Mr. Astalin believes that my talent is too rare and special, and I can't undergo regular training like you." He put down the book and began to recall the knowledge and principles that the chief consultant had told him today. "I can't use the power of blood to strengthen myself like you do, or add powerful characteristics to the weapons in my hands. Anything in my hands will be crushed into powder in an instant. No mistake, one post, one content, one book, one forum." Wayne leaned against the bed, raised his hand and pinched the orc's shoulder, and comforted him, "Don't be discouraged. On the day when the adults tested our abilities and gave us our surnames, they promised you personally that as long as you adapt and learn well, your abilities will always be used appropriately." Vaughn nodded, sighed, and continued, "Of course I always remember what the adults said. I was called away alone today. In fact, it was under the instruction of Lord Harvey to test the gifted weapon tailored for me. But the effect was not good. The thing lasted less than 10 seconds in my hand, and it was directly shattered by my gifted ability. Listening to Mr. Astalin's words, it seems that this thing is not cheap, which makes me afraid of the next test." Everyone shouted in unison, "What? You actually have a weapon tailored for you by Lord Harvey? Damn it! Why don't I have a weapon given by the Lord? Am I not working hard enough in training? Yes. I am ready to sacrifice my heart for the Lord at any time, and my loyalty is evident to all. Ah! Why? My violent bloodline was praised by the Lord himself." No one cared about Vaughn's special treatment anymore. They all gathered around Vaughn's bed with their fists clenched, making his hair stand on end instantly. This envy and jealousy is so strong. Chapter 144. After successfully completing the awakening ceremony of the first batch of Blood Warriors, Harvey finally found time to attend the online exchange meeting of spellcasters on the Magic Network forum on Friday night. When he logged into the forum a little later than usual, he found that the atmosphere of today's exchange meeting was a little different. "Magic Shield, everyone, I don't need to say more about the situation in recent times. The Church of Glory has done such a thing, simply ignoring the covenant between the two factions. Son of Flame, humph. It's not surprising that those guys who are brainwashed by the holy light can do such a thing." Harvey frowned slightly, and he didn't figure out what happened. But seeing these two spellcasters who obviously have the background of the Federation, they were so sarcastic in the exchange meeting, it must be that the contradiction between the Church and the Federation has intensified. Shadow Knight, the Church's Inquisition army took advantage of the spellcaster coalition's full-scale attack on the demons' rear supply lines and military bases to drive a large number of ordinary believers to the magic stone mines of the Evil Moon Mountains to collect raw ore in advance. Not only that, they also built churches and monasteries in the mines, as if they wanted to occupy this place directly. Frost Giant, will the Federation and the Wizard allies sit back and do nothing? Aren't the agreements on how to divide the evil Moon Mountain mines still under discussion? Why did they do something that angered the spellcasters? As far as Harvey knows, the temporary covenant formed by the spellcasters and the Church 100 years ago due to the invasion of the demons included a clear consensus and regulations. When any disputes arise between the two factions due to interests, they must go through the jointly established Supreme Council, and the secular nobles must mediate in order to reach a final resolution. At a time when it is clear that the resolution has not been decided, the Church has taken irrational actions in advance. I don't know if it is for a reason or if it is really stupid. Shadow Knight. The cause of this incident was the joint attack by the spellcasters and the Church coalition forces when the demons withdrew before winter last year. Spell Shield. At that time, the demons dispatched their largest hybrid monster regiment. The spellcaster combat unit predicted the danger and evacuated in advance, but the Judgment Army insisted on advancing alone and was eventually severely damaged. The other side accused the spellcasters of deserting the battlefield and betraying the covenant of advancing and retreating together. Harvey shook his head helplessly. This fragile temporary alliance relationship could not play any role in restraining the behavior of both parties in such a fierce battle involving life and death. Not to mention that the two sides have been enemies for hundreds of years. If the demons had not pressed forward step by step, it would not be surprising that they would backstab each other and drag their feet in the battle. Scorching Lord, the person who led the believers' migration to the mining area, was the notorious God's punishment backbone figure in the Church High Judge Zach Hyde. The Church's holy city has currently stated that it has not issued any instructions to him, and has completely shifted the responsibility for the matter. This strategy is probably just like the Church's tacit approval and connivance of witch hunter groups, and privately and secretly attacking spellcasters. As long as there is no handle directly instructed by the Church's top leaders, it will eventually turn into a protracted verbal dispute, and the Federation can only suffer this loss. After all, spellcasters in the southern countries do not have such a large popular base as the Church. Although their status is lofty, they are still in the mortal class and belong to a minority that cannot occupy the high ground of public opinion. Son of Flame, since the Church leaders don't admit it, why should the Federation pretend to be nice to them? Just send a few high-level spellcasters to kill that guy named Zach Hyde. Magic Shield. It's not that simple. Zach Hyde is surrounded by a group of 500 holy knights, all of whom are mid-level knights with activated bloodline talents. The chance of success of a high-level spellcaster's assassination alone is very small. If a large number of spellcasters are sent to attack, it will be equivalent to directly provoking a war and breaking the covenant. Frost Giant. Haha, there is no chance of assassination alone, and direct war is afraid of being criticized. The Church uses civilian believers as cheap meat shields to openly seize the magic stone revenue of the mining area. Now those hypocritical magic politicians in the Federation can't sleep well. Heart of the Forest, after all, it's nothing more than a struggle for interests. Everyone discussed this matter in the exchange meeting, but Harvey keenly discovered that the forum members with the background of the Federation clearly had a clear attitude, while the neutral members of other ethnic groups mostly watched from the sidelines and did not make any comments involving their own positions. There are also different factions among the spellcasters, and they are not really united. What is the real purpose of the Burning Lord and others who took the initiative to discuss this matter openly in the exchange meeting? It is impossible that they exposed their family scandals just to make everyone eat melons and have fun. Before Harvey could think about the meaning, the code of the member representing the Scorching Lord on the crystal panel suddenly flashed. The legendary spellcaster took the initiative to talk to him alone? Scorching Lord, dear Mr. Turing, I'm sorry to bother you. I wonder what you think about the incident discussed in today's forum? Harvey's heart skipped a beat. It turned out that their calculations were hitting him. After the last time the forum members united to take revenge on the witch hunters, everyone saw that the Administrator Turing's position was obviously biased towards the spellcasters, but his identity was extremely special. Not only did he not have a background relationship with the Federation and any wizard kingdom, he was not even a human, but was suspected to be some kind of ancient intelligent race. And the Scorching Lord knew very well that in the attack by the Demon Slayers that was suspected to target the forum, Mr. Turing, as the forum administrator, easily wiped out the powerful Church Demon Slayers. No mistakes in one post, one content, 1.6, 1.9, one book, one forum. If he could be asked to take action, it would be the most suitable choice to deal with the high-level judge who was in the mining area of the Evil Moon Mountains and openly confronted the Federation in the name of ordinary believers. But the problem is that Harvey has no ability to take action against him. He was tracked and located by the Demon Slayer in the magic network, and then suddenly attacked. He was only forced to resist, and finally escaped with the help of the spiritual anchor mutation that he didn't even understand. Now asking him to kill a high-level bloodline knight thousands of miles away is simply a fantasy. Administrator Turing, it seems that no forum member has been hurt or suffered any loss in this matter, so I am sorry that I cannot comment on it. He still has to maintain his status, but Harvey doesn't dare to take this job at all. He is very clear about his identity and strength in the real world. Besides, Harvey's most concerned thing at the moment is to be able to stay safely in the northern wilderness, develop his own territory, and maximize the resources and benefits of the surrounding areas. As for the demon battlefield in the Evil Moon Mountains far away, the open and secret struggles between the two giant organizations, the Federation and the Church, he is not interested at all, and does not want to get involved easily. Chapter 145. Scorching Lord, this is not a request I made to you as a forum member. Rather, I want to ask you for help on behalf of the Federation and the Wizard Kingdom Alliance. The legendary spellcaster's words have never been so humble, and it seems that he is indeed troubled by solving this problem. Scorching Lord, originally, any of the high-level spellcasters in the Federation could easily solve this dispute. Even if any of the 3 legendary spellcasters, including me, took action, it would undoubtedly be possible to remove the nail that was stuck in the Evil Moon mine. Harvey understood his meaning very well. It was not that the Federation did not have the strength to solve the problem, but that they were firmly bound by the superficial covenant and secular public opinion and could not move at all. The choice before them was either to directly restart the century-old war between the Church and the magicians, or to bite the bullet and swallow this loss. Both choices were unacceptable to them. After all, although the demons withdrew their troops for a short time, they were still eyeing the human countries in the southern border, which was the real concern of the human race. Scorching Lord, so, on behalf of the Federation, I beg Mr. Turing to help you. You will undoubtedly gain the goodwill of the Federation and the Wizarding Kingdom. If you need to pay any price for this, please feel free to ask. We will do our best to meet it. Harvey sat in front of the magic brain instrument and fell into a long silence. He took a while to reply. Administrator Turing, I need some time to consider, but I can't promise you that I will definitely choose to intervene in your dispute. Scorching Lord, I understand, I am waiting for your reply here. Harvey paced back and forth in the castle study, feeling extremely irritable. Although he temporarily used consideration to stabilize the Scorching Lord, he still needed to give the other party a reply as soon as possible. The longer he delayed, the easier it would be to expose his inability to take action or his lack of strength. Are these old guys in the Federation so obsessed with face? Can't they just fly to the Evil Moon mine and kill that dog judge with the 9 rings legendary spell? He gritted his teeth and cursed secretly. On second thought, he felt that it was indeed inappropriate. The Church also has high-level priests, and there are also powerful cardinals and popes who are rumored to have entered the legendary level. If they act rashly, not only will the dispute between the two parties be restarted, but they will also be accused of actively tearing up the covenant and destroying the stability of the human alliance in public opinion. The Federation will definitely not dare to make such a move. Even if Harvey has the ability to take action, he still has to think of a way in advance to clear the identity background of the Federation and the Wizard Kingdom, otherwise he will still be caught and the dirty water will be thrown on the spellcaster class. Harvey recalled the previous battle against the evil orc priest in the Glacial Valley. He had relied on the modified magic brain positioning instrument to connect the evil orc priest with the spiritual power of the stitched corpse puppet giant beast, and used the energy beam in the magic net to directly cross the plane to kill the opponent successfully. I don't know if there is a suitable way to apply this ultra-long-range instant kill attack to the high-level judge. After all, the opponent is a high-level judge knight who has awakened the bloodline talent ability specially trained by the Church. They are not ordinary spellcasters. They don't have magic patterns in the magic net that can lock and display the coordinate position. The projection of the bloodline talent in the magic net is an existence called bloodline core. Its operation rules are completely different from the magic patterns of the spellcaster. It only allows the bloodline talent to use it to absorb pure magic energy from the magic net to stimulate their own bloodline ability. Therefore, the coordinates of the bloodline core in the magic net are not fixed. It changes completely with the movement of the talent in the real world, making it more difficult to track and lock. But the coordinates of the high-level judge in reality will not change easily in a short time. Unfortunately, I can't find the area corresponding to the Evil Moon Mountains in the magic network. Not to mention finding the core that represents him accurately from countless blood cores. Thinking of this, Harvey suddenly had an idea and remembered Mr. Heart Demon, who had been ignored by him for a long time. Since he took the initiative to invite Harvey and several other forum members to conduct an almost fruitless magic network adventure, the other parties seemed to feel ashamed and did not contact Harvey frequently to request another visit to the real world. In terms of the depth of research on the magic network space, in the entire Spellcaster forum, except for Harvey, the founder of the forum, I am afraid that only Mr. Heart Demon, the native of the magic network, knows the secrets of the magic network space best. Seeking some advice and help from him, perhaps this attack on the church judge will have a greater chance of success. Crossing planes, killing enemies in reality from the magic net. The inner demon responded to Harvey's call and met him in the magic net. After listening to Harvey's simple explanation, he was a little confused and uncertain. I have never heard of this kind of attack method. Not to mention that it is impossible to find the magic pattern corresponding to the target. Even if it is found, the opponent will immediately sense the malice and threat from the magic net, and either directly shuttle and escape, or use mental power to counterattack. He paused, smiled, and teased, for example, when we first met, if I rashly attacked you, with your mental strength, you could easily escape from me, or directly counterattack me. Isn't this a typical example? Harvey thought for a moment and discussed with him directly, the main problem now is that we can't locate the opponent. After all, the magic network plane does not completely correspond to the real world. I can completely solve the problem of how to launch an attack. No mistakes in one song, one post, one content, 1.6, 1.9, one book, one forum. After all, the pure energy beams that he stimulated and released could not be easily withstood even by the strange monsters in the rifts of the alien space. The magic patterns and cores of ordinary spellcasters and bloodline knights, even if they were easily touched, were enough to shatter their cores instantly. The inner demon patiently explained, the magic network space does not correspond to the physical location rules of the real world. What you think is going east may actually be west. If you travel far away, you may end up back to where you started. But, since you mentioned the location of the Evil Moon Mountains in the real world. The huge single eye on the inner demon's head suddenly blinked mischievously. I happen to know the situation there, and I have a good suggestion. Harvey couldn't help but be surprised and said, you were summoned in the past and descended to the vicinity of the Evil Moon Mountains. No. Alas, I once had a small group of quite devout believers there, but unfortunately none of them had the ability to complete the task. My summoning ritual, the one that was closest to success, actually caught my attention and made me focus some of my attention on it. Your believers, are they still staying near the Evil Moon Mountains? Still making sacrifices to you and praying for a response? The inner demon nodded and said helplessly, in the past 50 years, the frequency has been getting lower and lower, and the power of will that can be provided to me is so weak that I am too lazy to absorb it. Harvey was overjoyed and immediately proposed, if it is to deal with the glorious church that your demon clan hates the most, are you and your believers interested in participating in my action? Of course, you can make some additional requests, and I will try my best to meet them. Chapter 146. The Evil Moon Mountains, which have just begun to spring, are still not a suitable day to cultivate food. The land has not yet been thawed, and even if the ox is driven, it cannot plow the land quickly. These days without harvest, coupled with the ongoing war of demons that had been going on for many years, brought only fear, hunger, and death to the local civilians. But Scarhead Carl has been doing well these days. The priest and deacon of the glorious god cult suddenly came to him and hired him to drive to the front border several times, carrying the church believers in Blackstone to the newly opened mining area. Blackstone City is a huge city located at the foot of the Evil Moon Mountains on the border of Orland, the Wizard Kingdom, and it is also a front-line war fortress for humans to fight against the invasion of demons. This city that accommodates tens of thousands of people is stationed in the battle mages of the Spellcasters Federation, the mage coalition of the Seven Wizard Kingdoms, the judges of the glorious church and the war priests, etc., with a total of nearly 5,000 extraordinary armed forces. There are also ordinary knights with nearly 10,000 people, which are constantly being stationed in half a year to resist the attacks of the demon army. The daily life and work of the civilians and believers living in Blackstone City is entirely carried out around supporting this huge coalition of countries. In any other city in the southern countries, there is no such urban ecology that is completely contrary to common sense. But it's very common in Black Rock. As soon as the sky was dawn, Scarhead Carl put harnesses on two thin old horses from the backyard of his dilapidated house, pulled a ceiling carriage covered with grease cloth, and slowly headed towards the city gate. Drive away. This is a good job. By counting on the head, you can earn almost 20 silver coins. Moreover, the damn demon's offensive has slowed down recently and no longer frequently harass the borderline. There will be several trials along the way. There is no need to worry about personal safety in the military camp. Today was his last train, but it was a little different from the previous ones. A small group of church believers from outside Blackstone City took the initiative to come to him and paid an additional carriage and horse fee to let him carry them. Go to the mine area. It is a surprise to be able to earn double commissions. Old man, don't sit on the shaft with me. Let's stay in the carriage. The weather is not warm just now, so be careful of frostbite. When you go to the mining area, you have to beg the priests to take action. The grey-haired old man who insisted on sitting on the shaft with Carl shook his head, rejected his kindness, and took out a small tin wine pot from his arms and took a bite. This is nothing, it's colder in winter. I've been used to it for a long time. It seems that although the other party is not a local resident of Black Rock City, he must be a local who has lived in a farm and village near the Evil Moon Mountains for a long time. Carl nodded and changed to a new topic to pass the time. Why did you have to take your family to the mining area? I heard that there are still many scattered demons there that have not been evacuated, and the mining area is in the mountains, and life is comparable to Blackstone City. This is much more bitter. The old man turned his head and looked at Carl, wonderingly. Oh? Have you been to the mining area? Well, I've done this job 4 times. I have to spend the night in the mining area every time, and I've returned to the city the next day. As soon as he finished speaking, a scarred man in the carriage poked his head out and asked in a low voice, "Are you familiar with the diocese being built in the mining area? How many believers have the church moved? Are there many priests and pastors there?" The old man's face slightly shook and he glared at the scarred man. Scarhead Carl didn't care at all and said with a smile, "Of course, the churches, monasteries, and pastoral houses in the mining area are being built day and night. The men of the church seem to be very anxious. Among the believers many people are tired and sick." He said curiously, "You are also going to assist in the construction of the parish? Although the old man looks healthy, he may not be able to endure this hardship." The old man raised his lips and smiled strangely. "The glory is above. Even if I don't have the strength to contribute to the construction of the parish, as long as I am humble and pious enough, the priests will always be able to use me." Carl himself was just a shallow believer, and he could only sigh when he heard this. "That's right, you believers are always so pious." The Magic Stone Mine area located at the entrance of the Evil Moon Mountains Canyon Valley was closely guarded by the 2,000 church judges, guarding several main checkpoints entering and leaving the valley, and surrounded as tightly as a railway. In the valley that covers an area of not a large area, several mine caves that can be used by mine trucks and people have been dug in advance in the side of the mountain, but no miners are seen entering and leaving for work, but there is a stationed 1. Judgment Army squad. On the gentle slope outside the valley, there is a scene of work that is full of work. Countless simple and ragged church believers drive cattle and horses, or pull the stones mined from the mountain with bare hands, and go to the one that has just laid the foundation on the hillside. At the church, it is difficult to move forward. They were just escorted here by the church to send a judge army, and they didn't even have time to build a temporary residence for themselves, relying solely on the tar tent distributed by the church as a simple cover for night rest. Some priests in pure white robes stood scattered on high places, holding sacred scriptures and staffs, and kept proclaiming the Lord's mercy and truth to the hard-working believers, and chanting each passage when praying in scriptures. Believers will spontaneously stop their work, kneel on the dirty soil and pray and respond piously. Senior presiding judge Zach Hyde stood on a temporary wooden tower, looking at the crowded scene below with a serious expression. "Prince Raphael, how long will it take for us to repair the main building of the parish?" The white-robed priest bowed slightly and replied in a low voice, "Sir, the number of believers who have moved to the mining area can participate in construction work is less than 500, and most of the rest are elderly and weak, which will take at least 2 months. Time. What? 2 months? I can't wait for so long. The Holy City has done its best to make acquiesce to my unauthorized action. They have to withstand the pressure from the Federation and the Wizard Kingdom to leave me the time not much. There is no mistake. 1619, 1 book, a book. What's more, Zach Hyde also drew half of the Judgment Army from the church battles in Blackstone, including nearly 2/3 of the Bloodline Knights, which was equivalent to killing the armed forces of the church in Blackstone. If the contradiction intensifies to the point where conflict is impossible to avoid, Blackstone will fall into a situation where the power of the church is extremely empty, and it may even be directly dominated by the Federation. If the number of believers is not enough, send more judges and priests to go farther places to recruit people, hire more coachmen and caravans, and move them here as soon as possible. As long as the cathedral and the judgmentary military holy house representing the authority of the church and the right to the diocese are built, and enough civilian believers gather to stay here, the church can publicly recognize the legitimacy of its actions and declare that all this is for if the ordinary believers here are sheltered, the Federation will no longer be able to intervene in the division of the benefits of the magic stone mineral before them. They have no courage to directly engage in armed conflicts with the judges in the mining area unless they ignore the agreement of the alliance and do not worry that the caster accidentally hurts the civilians, causing conflicts between the people of various countries and secular nobles in them. I heard that some of the believers who have migrated today have received basic aristocratic education and can read and write. The priest thought for a while and replied, "Yes, I especially remember that a small farmer from a nearby city moved his family to him. They claimed that their family had been pious for generations, and they were willing to come here to contribute to the Lord, regardless of gender, age, or age." Zacchaeus smiled satisfiedly and said, "The glory of our Lord always shines on them. Of course, it is time for them to give to the Lord. You select some people from these educated people who do not have to participate in the construction work and arrange them to assist the priests and the pastors, copying scriptures and sewing ritual flags. Follow your instructions, sir." Chapter 147. The mining area was not peaceful after nightfall. Many believers still sat in the open space outdoors and used iron chisels and stone hammers to knock on the mine stones under the weak light of candles, breaking up the irregular boulders into pieces of stone for construction. Led by the knights, the warriors of the Judgment Army continued to patrol key locations in the mining area. Only the cathedral construction site near the gentle slope had a moment of peace. After all, no one would stay here at night. "Stop! Who are you? Why are you here?" On the muddy construction road leading to the cathedral, 2 soldiers of the Judgment Army who had just changed guards shouted at a group of believers who were walking up. This group of believers seemed to be carrying something on their shoulders, and everyone was carrying a worn-out linen bag. "Sir, we are the believers responsible for drawing prayers and prayer flags." A grey-haired old man who was the leader of the group took the initiative to stand up and bowed humbly to the patrolling soldiers of the Judgment Army. The soldiers looked at each other and asked in confusion, "Drawing prayers? Why don't you stay in your tent to rest? Why go to the church construction site in the middle of the night?" The old man quickly took off the bag on his back, revealing the scattered sacrificial supplies and offerings inside. "The construction period is urgent. The priest ordered us to engrave the prayers of the Holy Book on the pillars of the foundation in advance, so that we have more time to help the priests do other things during the day." The soldiers of the Judgment Army nodded, quite moved. "Then there is no need to work overnight. Forget it, it's great that you have this intention. Bring more torches and candles. May the glory always shine on you pious people." The old man bowed repeatedly and watched the 2 soldiers who were changing guards slowly walk towards the camp. His dark eyes looked weird under the torchlight. The group of people put on their backpacks again and walked towards the church construction site on the hillside in unusual silence. "Father, will this really attract the attention of that existence?" The scarred middle-aged man asked anxiously. "We have tried countless ways in the past, but it seems difficult to please him, let alone summon him to the real world." The old man glanced at his son and said in a low voice, "What do you know? This time I really got his revelation from my dream prayer. Otherwise, why do you think we took such a big risk to come here?" After he finished speaking, he looked around at the others and ordered decisively, "Time is running out. We may be discovered at any time. Start preparing for the ceremony now. You 3 are responsible for handling the sacrificial offerings. You and you, the 2 of you will help me draw the ritual array. The rest of you will be divided into 2 groups, responsible for observing the situation outside and reporting to us in time." Without wasting any more time, everyone immediately opened their backpacks and began to act separately in silence. Someone took out a number of sacrificial items from his backpack that looked extremely evil: a shrunken fetus wrapped in beeswax, a strange insect soaked in a sticky liquid and still trembling slightly, a group of terrible tumors that were bright red but had no bloody smell. The old man held a pen made of black swan feathers in one hand and a delicate silver bowl in the other, constantly dipping the red and black liquid in it, and quickly drawing a large number of strange and evil symbols and inscriptions on the floor of the church hall that had not yet been capped. He had repeated these ritual processes countless times, and even if he was blindfolded, he would not make any mistakes. However, no matter how he tried in the past, he never succeeded. As the preparations for the ceremony were completely completed, the old man's originally calm eyes gradually turned into fanaticism. He called the other family members who were still in the hall, took the offerings they handed to him, and carefully placed them in the predetermined magic array position in turn, and began to recite the familiar ritual prayers. A great existence wandering in endless vanity. The superior in the shadows, the silent demon of the heart, the controller of mortal desires. I beg for a response, beg for attention. I beg for a response, beg for attention. I beg for a response, beg for attention. The old man kept muttering, and his body was completely lying on the ground, with his forehead pressed tightly against the ground. Others followed suit, muttering the ritual spell with the old man. In the quiet air, invisible weak cyclones seemed to suddenly appear, circling around the ritual array. In the distant darkness, there came a heavy sigh that seemed to be emitted by countless people at the same time. High Judge Zakhide had just completed the daily nightly prayer ceremony. With the help of the assistant priest, he cleaned his face and hands with clean warm water, put on a light priest's white robe, and prepared to go to bed. His residence is a marching tent that is exactly the same as other Judgment Army, and it is stationed in the Judgment Army's camp in the center of the valley. It looks inconspicuous. Except for the assistant priest who is responsible for his daily life and the subordinate knights who are close to him, no one else knows which of the hundreds of tents he will rest in after nightfall. This is also an effective strategy for him to avoid being attacked by high-level spellcasters at night. After all, although the Blood Knights are numerous, they cannot withstand the high-level spellcasters who can fly with the wind and are too mobile, which can easily catch them off guard. There is no need to worry about this problem during the day. The Judgment Army's demon-breaking crossbow is not a vegetarian. In the past few hundred years, these evil wizards who flies around the sky have suffered a lot. Not long after he lay down, he suddenly felt an irritable feeling and could not fall asleep peacefully through meditation. After the bloodline awakened, the extremely powerful heart beat hard in his chest a few times, which made him suddenly feel an inexplicable terror, and a layer of fine cold sweat arose behind him. Not good. Something unusual happened. The senior presiding judge turned over and sat up without hesitation. Before he could even put his armor, he pulled out his glorious sword from the weapon stand, opened the curtain of the camp and rushed out. The white-robed priest Raphael ran quickly from a distance, shouting a warning to him while running. Sir Zach! Not good. Something happened in the church, there was something happening in the church. Zakhide's eyes shrank, turned the hilt of the sword to press against the priest who almost crashed into his arms due to anxiety, and shouted loudly, "Calm down. What happened? What happened to the church?" The priest looked frightened, still in an incredible fear, and murmured, "Cultists. Some cultists were infiltrated among the believers, and they were actually conducting blasphemy to summon the devil in the church. What a blasphemy this is! Absolutely unforgivable." When Zakhide was young, he followed the Judge Knights and traveled to the southern countries for several years. He experienced countless battles to eliminate heretics and demon believers, so he naturally knew what these fallen people had. They wanted to contaminate and blaspheme the new parish that had just been in its prototype through sacrifices and summoning rituals, spread fear and depravity among the believers, and shake their pious faith. There is no mistake. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 619, 1 book, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, a book. Call the Blood Knights immediately and go to the church with me. Zakhide roared with gritted teeth, "I want them to pay a heavy price. When the dawn rises tomorrow, I will watch them on the stolen rack with my own eyes crying and wailing." The high-level presiding judge led dozens of intermediate Blood Knights to the church construction site at an extremely fast speed and found that several ordinary judge soldiers outside the church hall were fighting fiercely with swords against several believers. He snorted coldly, waved the sword in his hand with one hand, and his whole body turned into a blazing light and crashed into the crowd. In the blink of an eye, he saw the cultists who were fighting stubbornly, covering up and being killed. Broken hands and feet lie on the ground and struggle in pain. Don't kill them directly for now. Use divine techniques to slow down their injuries. When I finish cleaning up the cult leaders inside, let them accept my Lord's divine punishment together. After saying that, he rushed into the church without looking back. The summoning ceremony did cause some evil and abnormal energy fluctuations, but fortunately he arrived in time and did not have the most terrible result. The demon came as promised without being attracted by the ritual. The group of cultists led by a grey-haired old man were now holding simple weapons, huddling in a corner of the hall, staring at Zack Hyde, who rushed in with extreme hatred. "You group of filthy mice in the sewer." The senior presiding judge smiled grimly and slowly approached with his long sword. The old man spat a big mouthful of bloody saliva on the ground hatefully, and mocked with a fanatical expression, "You damn charlatans! One day, they will pay the price for your evil deeds." Zack Hyde laughed to the sky, "Ha ha ha! I want to see who will give first." He suddenly stuck halfway through his words, and his throat seemed to be sputtering. The white-robed priest rushed and wanted to step forward to support him, but he waved his hand away. "Ho ho! Zack Hyde suddenly spitted out a large mouthful of black and red pus and blood into the sky, mixed with a large amount of flesh and blood material suspected to be fragments of internal organs. He staggered twice, and suddenly heard several strange noises behind him. "Alas! Alas! Alas! Something exploded behind me?" Zack Hyde struggled to turn his veins bulging neck and slowly looked back. But he was frightened to find that, including the white-robed priest Raphael, several judges who had awakened their blood talent, suddenly exploded strangely, leaving only the blood-storming neck cavity, and slowly kneeled to the ground. The body. "Why, is this happening? Demon, you guys succeed." The senior presiding judge turned his head again, looked at the cultists who were also extremely frightened, and asked with difficulty. Before the other party could answer, a strange flush suddenly appeared on his face, causing Zhu Jian, who was extremely painful, to kneel to the ground. After a thud, Zack Hyde's pair of eyeballs were squeezed out of his eye sockets and fell to the ground with a click. Then his head finally made a terrifying sound of titanium, and then slowly cracked open. His blood mixed with scarlet brains, dyeing his pure white robe with endless crimson red along his neck. Chapter 148. Harvey felt a sharp pain in his head, and was helped down from the experimental table by Reiner in cold sweat. He had just completed a sneak attack on the church's high-level judge Zack Hyde in the magic net with Mr. Heart Demon. In order to ensure the success rate of this cross-dimensional assassination, after the Heart Demon locked the coordinates of the location of the Evil Moon Mountains in the magic net through the summoning ceremony of the believers, they immediately drove the mental projection to the magic net area, and then saw dozens of blood cores representing the church's trial army knights gathered here rapidly. Harvey and the Heart Demon could not accurately distinguish which of these cores belonged to the judge Zack Hyde, and the best way was not to let any of them go. So Harvey could only use all his mental power output to guide the planetary-level energy gathering array connected to him in the real plane, and gather all the pure magic energy stored in it into energy beams to smash these cores one by one. He and the inner demon were not worried that the other party would detect the danger and malice from the magic network space through the blood core. The shuttle distance of the energy beam was enough to reach tens of thousands of meters. They hid in a very far distance. One person was responsible for locking the target, and the other was responsible for releasing the attack. I hope that among the dozens of cores that I shattered, there is really that Zack Hyde of the God Punishment sect. After the exhausted Harvey politely said goodbye to Mr. Heart Demon, who was enthusiastic about helping him, he immediately left the magic network space and returned to the real world. Reiner helped him to the resting chair in the laboratory. Egno still handed him a healing potion to restore mental power and nourish magic power. After Harvey took it, he immediately closed his eyes and began to guide the recovery of mental power through meditation. At most tomorrow morning, he should be able to see the first-hand fresh news of this terrorist attack on the Spellcaster Forum, and then he can confirm whether his action is really successful. While trying to focus his thoughts and guide the recovery of mental power, Harvey fell into a drowsy dream unknowingly. After the familiar feeling of dizziness faded, he returned to the mysterious beach in the spiritual anchor. Turning his head and looking around, he saw the 3 transparent round eggs containing miniature baby embryos that he accidentally found on the beach last time, now quietly placed on the hill that Harvey deliberately piled up with sea sand. Harvey originally planned to take time to study them, so he naturally needed to place them well to prevent them from being accidentally washed back into the sea by the tide brought by the waves, and then it would be difficult to find them again. Harvey couldn't help but start to wonder if it was because he devoured the 3 demon slayers who invaded his spiritual anchor on this beach, causing some unknown changes in this space, and finally giving birth to these 3 strange round eggs. He had previously killed the undead priests of the evil orcs through magic pattern positioning in the Icefield Valley, and today he used energy beams to destroy the blood cores of dozens of church judges, but there was no such situation as the one in front of him. It seems that this strange thing can only be formed after using the strange devouring ability in the spiritual anchor to kill the opponent. Magic cannot be used in this space, and Harvey cannot use the magician's hand to control the round egg for observation. He can only grit his teeth and take the risk to pick up one with his own hands and observe it carefully in front of his eyes. The tentacles of the round egg are extremely soft, as if it will break directly if you squeeze it with a little force. Harvey feels that it is like the water-filled balloon that he loved to play with in his childhood in his previous life, which makes him want to pinch it in his hands and play with it. The soft round egg keeps changing its shape slightly in Harvey's hands, and the miniature baby embryo in it is slowly floating in the liquid. At first, Harvey felt that this thing was a little cold to the touch, but as the temperature of his palm was infected, it seemed to be getting warmer and warmer, and gradually it felt a little hot. He was shocked and immediately put the round egg back into the sand pile, but was surprised to find that it was constantly expanding and getting bigger. Finally, the eggshell could not bear it and burst with a puff. The tiny baby embryo, stained with an unknown liquid, rolled out of the eggshell and began to grow almost instantly, as if it had gone through the development process of a person from a newly born baby to a child, then to a teenager and a young adult in just a few seconds. Harvey was so scared that he took a few steps back, his eyes wide open, and his mouth opened, but he couldn't make any sound. A naked, hairless, pale human was lying face down on the beach less than 3 meters away from him, but he was clearly only a fist-sized embryo a few seconds ago. Harvey's heart beat heavily because of fear, and the body of this strange person also trembled slightly several times in the same frequency. Then he climbed up from the beach with stiff movements and slowly turned his head to face Harvey. What's going on? How does he look exactly like me? Harvey almost couldn't help but turn around and run away immediately, but curiosity and a strange sense of familiarity still controlled most of his mind, making him unable to move and stay where he was. The strange pale human in front of him, no, it should be said that the new human who looked exactly like Harvey just stood there quietly, staring at Harvey for a long time with a pair of lifeless eyes. I don't know how much time has passed. Harvey suddenly felt a little embarrassed. This feeling actually temporarily covered up his inner fear and curiosity, because the other person had a face exactly like his, but stood there naked. It makes him feel as if he is not wearing clothes after taking a shower and is running naked in the mirror. It's so fucking shame. After waiting for a while, Harvey finally mustered up the courage to approach him. He stretched out his hand tentatively, spread his 5 fingers to the other party's chest. He wanted to try to sense whether the other party was really a living human, whether the heart was beating normally, and whether the skin had normal temperature. The moment the palm of his hand touched the skin on the other person's chest, Harvey only felt that his mental power, thinking and soul were instantly divided into two. The illusory feeling of tearing and decomposition made his whole body cold and numb, and his eyes were dark and he almost couldn't stand and fainted. When he got used to it for a few seconds, he immediately opened his eyes and wanted to regain his vision. He found that the person standing opposite him suddenly changed his dress. The face was still my own face, but suddenly I put on a funny and unfitted swim trunk on my lower body, which was also painted with the strange look of SpongeBob in the cartoon. But the other party's eyes were no longer dull and unconscious at this moment, but instead turned their eyes lively and observed themselves drippingly. Wrong. He didn't put on his pants suddenly. Harvey suddenly noticed the abnormality and immediately looked down at his body, and found that he was standing naked and pale and naked at the moment. My soul and mind have moved to this weird clone? There is no mistake. 619, one book, a book. No, he was so scared that he quickly raised his hand to approach his body, wanting to return to his original body in the same way. The body wearing shorts also raised his hand almost synchronizedly like him, and touched Harvey's palms facing him. Hey? What's going on? Harvey couldn't help but mutter to himself. He felt his gaze change immediately, and returned to his pants, and he opened his mouth and said the same sentence almost at the same time. Hey? What's going on? Harvey instantly understood the problem because he found that he could manipulate both the body and the cloned body at the same time, make the same movements and say the same words. And we can also obtain two different perspectives almost at the same time because of the different standing angles of the two. Is the legendary, the state of separation of souls. He began to familiarize himself with the two bodies at the same time, and gradually began to adapt to the one-pointed and two-pointed use, asking them to make different movements, sometimes clapping and sometimes squatting. Is this schizophrenia now? Harvey murmured to himself with a frown. If you keep doing this, your condition will worsen. After all, it's 2 bodies and 1 soul. Harvey covered his private parts with both hands and replied with a wry smile. They seemed to think of something at the same time, and almost turned their heads to look at the 2 weird round eggs left on the sand pile. He cursed in unison, "Damn, there are 2 myself in those 2 eggs, right?" Chapter 149. Legendary wizard Chemo Salas came out of his meditation instantly and looked up at the quiet night sky outside the window. A magic messenger flapped its wings and crashed into the window. A figure who appeared out of thin air at the window immediately raised his hand to catch it and held the letter in his hand before the messenger turned into ashes. Secret report from Blackstone City in the Evil Moon Mountains. The magic seal they put on the letter seems to be extremely urgent news. Salas at the window said with a smile to Salas sitting in a high-backed chair. Salas, who was sitting leisurely in the chair, raised his mouth corners, took the magic secret letter handed to him and opened it directly. After reading only a few lines of words, he immediately couldn't control his expression and widened his eyes slightly. The high-level judge in the Evil Moon Mine was suddenly attacked by a group of upper demons summoned by cultists last night. He, along with 23 judge knights who had awakened their bloodline talents, and a mid-level priest, all died in the battle. The legendary spellcaster couldn't help but sigh, holding the yellowed letter in his hand, closed his eyes and fell into deep thought. He had just sent a request to the administrator Mr. Turing through the spellcaster forum 3 days ago, asking him to take action and secretly eliminate the high-level judge Zack Hyde by putting aside his identity as a spellcaster of the Federation. He said he needed to think about it. From his tone and attitude, he didn't seem to want to get involved in the dispute between the human spellcasters and the Church. After all, the other party's identity was not the same race as himself, and they, the forum members with the background of the Federation, had no idea at all what price they could use to impress the other party. Unexpectedly, in just 3 days, the high-level judge who was currently regarded as a thorn in the eyes of the Federation, along with so many powerful judgment knights under his command, were all wiped out, and the attack was launched in the form of summoning demons to descend, perfectly eliminating the suspicion of the Federation's spellcasters. Can we be 100% sure that it was indeed the mysterious Mr. Turing who solved the problem for us? The battle report clearly stated that the target died from the upper demon summoned by the pagans, Mr. Turing. Could his true identity be an ancient demon from another space? Or an extremely rare upper demon? The 2 Saras shook their heads at the same time and denied themselves. The upper demons were indeed rare and powerful, with many strange talents, but the Church of Light had been fighting against them in the real world for hundreds of years, and had long understood the mysterious background of these visitors from other spaces, and had also created powerful divine arts that were specifically designed to restrain demons. As the high-ranking judge of the Church of Glory, Zack Hyde led dozens of mid-level bloodline knights and priests. It was impossible for him to be wiped out by a high-ranking demon without any resistance. The sword of glory in his hand, which was bestowed by the current pope, had been stained with the blood of countless demons. Instead of making random guesses here, it is better to go directly to the forum and seek the correct answer from Mr. Turing. The 2 Saras nodded in affirmation at the same time, and instantly merged into one and flashed to sit down at the desk. As soon as he entered his forum code, he was directly pulled into a separate communication interface with the Administrator Turing, which made the legendary spellcaster shrink his eyes. Administrator Turing, Mr. Burning Overlord, I am sorry that I didn't tell you in advance. I solved the matter you asked me for help a few days ago for you last night. Sure enough. It was him who took action. I thought he would consider it for a long time and then refuse indifferently. I didn't expect that he didn't even bother to inform me in advance and took action lightly. Saras sighed lightly, and then felt a little embarrassed. Begging others for help, now it's time for them to pay the price and reward. I wonder what this mysterious existence will ask of him. Scorching Lord, Mr. Turing, thank you very much for your help. On behalf of the Federation and the Wizarding Union, I express my highest respect to you. It's hard to imagine that this matter was solved so easily. Scorching Lord, then it's time for me to fulfill my previous promise to you. I wonder what price and reward we need to pay to repay your help? Harvey's mouth curled up slightly, and he couldn't help but smile. He had been waiting for the other party to take the initiative to fulfill his promise, and he had long thought about asking for a big price, and cut a piece of fat meat from the Federation's magic politicians and the high-level spellcasters who were cautious. It's time to prepare the legendary spellcaster for the shadow clone technique I used in the forum. Administrator Turing, haha, you are a forum member who values commitment and recognizes the principle of equal exchange. I appreciate this very much. This is also the main reason why I am willing to help you solve this problem, but only this time. I have never been very interested in intervening in the disputes of interests in the real world. Kimo Salas' heart tightened, and he heard the implicit hints and warnings in the other party's words, not to make requests to him frequently, especially when he is completely uninterested. Administrator Turing, before I ask you for compensation, I have a question to ask you, Mr. Scorching Lord. Do you think that this spellcaster forum that exists in the magic network plane is completely created by me alone and managed and operated? The legendary spellcaster frowned and thought carefully about why the other party suddenly asked him such a question, but he did not feel neglected at all. Scorching Lord, please forgive my stupidity. Most members, including me, seem to agree that this magical form that transcends the reality of magic technology was created and managed by you. I don't know if this answer is correct. Administrator Turing, the answer is wrong, but I understand that your cognition has some deviations. After all, your understanding of the magic network and me is too low. But it doesn't matter. I can tell you the correct answer, and you can also tell other members. This is my sincere support for everyone and my goodwill. Administrator Turing, the forum is not my own, but created by our group of people. In this spellcaster forum, I just appear in front of you as a representative who communicates directly with all members. No mistakes, one post, one content, 1619, one book, one bar. Kimo Salas keenly captured the word representing people in the other party's information content, which actually used an ancient word with descriptive semantics. That means that Mr. Turing does not regard himself as a real person, which once again confirms his doubts about the identity of this existence. Moreover, the other party actually revealed that the forum was created by a group of them and that he only appeared in front of everyone as a representative to communicate with the current casters. They. This is also a semantic expression using ancient words. This group of people who created the caster forum belong to the same ancient and mysterious intelligent race? Before he could think about it, the other party sent a new message. Manager Turing, in addition to me, I will introduce another of my companions to you separately, Mr. Observer Newman. And the price and reward I ask for from you is that I hope you can introduce Mr. Newman anonymously to the Supreme Council of the Federation through your real identity, including you, the three chief legendary casters. Kimo Salas stared at the text messages that kept appearing on the crystal screen and was stunned. What does this mean? He wants me to introduce another of his companions, Mr. Observer Newman, to the Supreme Council as one of the chiefs of the Federation? Scorching Lord, I'm sorry, Mr. Turing, I don't quite understand why the person you are talking about. Mr. Newman, the Observer, would be interested in the Supreme Council of the Federation? Administrator Turing's next understated words completely shocked the legendary spellcaster and made him unable to close his mouth for a long time. Administrator Turing, oh, it's very simple. My companion is a fanatical scholar who is keen on studying magic. He wants to join the Federation directly as an anonymous person and obtain the unanimous authorization of the three chiefs, including you. He can freely access and read the magic research documents contributed by all spellcasters since the establishment of the Federation, and give him the right to publish papers and research reports through you at any time. Kimo Salas finally recovered from his daze and muttered to himself with a strange look, He wants to join the Federation anonymously? He wants to read and study the magic research documents of the Federation. The ultimate goal is to successfully publish research papers through the Federation. Chapter 150. Ale is known as the magic capital and miracle city. A huge floating magic tower standing above the city is looming in the clouds. The pure white stone tower reflects dazzling light under the sunlight. This is the headquarters of the Spellcaster Union, known as the iconic magic building of the Sky Domain. As one of the three chiefs of the Supreme Council of the Union, Kimo Saroth does not often come here to work on weekdays. The chief of the council is just an honorary position. The real responsible for handling daily complicated affairs is actually the Department of Magic Affairs, the Department of Combat Defense, the Department of Academic Research and the Department of External Affairs set up under the council. Ale has a law prohibiting any spellcaster from using flying magic at will in the city, but this does not limit legendary spellcasters like Kimo Saroth. The short-distance teleportation magic with the help of plane flash is not strictly considered flying with the wind. On the pure white stone steps in front of the Sky Domain Mage Tower, the space suddenly distorted slightly, and the next second, the figure of Kimo Salas in a simple mage robe appeared directly on the stairs. He ignored the spellcasters around him, bowed to him subconsciously, lifted the hem of his robe and walked towards the gate of the tower in 2 steps. There were countless strange and mysterious patterns painted on the gate of the Sky Domain Tower, and a strange human face without eyes was engraved as a relief in the middle of the gate. When Chemo Salas approached the gate, the face suddenly trembled slightly, and then exaggeratedly piled up a flattering smile. "Respected Lord Sarath, welcome to the Sky region today. Lord Dawson has arrived before you and is waiting for you in the lounge on the top floor." Sarath interrupted the pupilless face's long opening speech expressionlessly, "Enzo, please shut up. Open the door for me." The face called Enzo laughed dryly and silently manipulated the huge metal door to slowly open. The legendary spellcaster walked in without hesitation, his steps were much more hurried than usual. Today, he took the initiative to invite the other 2 chiefs to come to the Sky region to discuss matters. There was no reason for him to be late and make the other party wait. "I took the small teleportation array specially set up in the tower to the top floor. Under the guidance of the waiter, I just opened the door of the lounge and heard 2 voices arguing from inside." Sarath frowned and knew that his 2 colleagues were arguing about some academic issues that were like Arabian Nights. And when one of them couldn't come to Al-A'i in person, they were still arguing fiercely from a distance. In the lounge, a short old man was standing in front of a full-length mirror inlaid with silver carvings, spitting and expounding his views. In the ordinary full-length mirror, a middle-aged man in a black robe sitting at a desk was shown. He frowned and rolled his eyes, trying to interrupt the short old man's long speech, but he resisted. "Dawson, Gallagher, I'm here." Sarath stepped forward and greeted him directly, helping the black-robed man in the mirror. "Ha! Sarath, you're finally here. I'm so annoyed by Dawson. He just tinkers with his useless research topic all day long, and he wants to drag me down with him." The black-robed man in the mirror showed a happy expression on his face, and quickly stood up and stuck to the mirror, showing a smiling face through a thin layer of silver-coated glass. The short old man called Dawson had a rather funny red rosacea nose and a slightly sparse hair on his head. He heard the sarcasm in the black-robed man's words and immediately cursed in anger. "Useless research topic? Who do you say is useless? My research direction has the opportunity to create a new school of magic. Humph, you 2 may never achieve it in this lifetime." As he roared excitedly, the saliva from his mouth splashed on the mirror, scaring the black-robed man backing away repeatedly, as if he didn't want to be hurt by the other party's saliva splashing through the glass. Sarath interrupted speechlessly, "Okay, let's discuss your research topic later. I didn't call you here today for academic debate." He slowly sat on the soft sofa, took a sip of the black tea prepared by the waiter in advance, and then started to get to the point. "The secret report from Black Rock City last night was sent in advance by someone you arranged, Gallagher." The man in the mirror nodded, "Yes, my spy in the Evil Moon Mine obtained the information at the first time. After confirming the authenticity of the information, I immediately wrote to inform you." He paused, and added with a complicated look, "Since I am not sure whether it is really that mysterious existence who made the move, I dare not send you a message directly through the forum, fearing that the news will leak out in advance. The man in black robe is one of the 3 chiefs of the Federation, the legendary arcane mage Wes Gallagher, and the Shadow Knight who was personally recommended and invited to the Spellcaster Forum by Sarath. The other chief, Soren Dawson, is actually a member of the forum, but he was just recommended to join by the Shadow Knight a month ago. He currently has no right to speak and can only listen in. Don't worry about leaking the news. I have confirmed directly with Mr. Turing that it was indeed him who made the move." As soon as Sarath said this, the other 2 immediately fell into a brief silence. A mysterious existence in the magic web plane can instantly cross the plane and kill a high-level bloodline knight, as well as dozens of intermediate-level judges and priests guarding him. I asked myself that I couldn't do it easily. Even if I could kill the other party, it would always take some effort, take some time, and I would definitely expose my identity. Gallagher sighed with a complicated expression. As a legendary arcane spellcaster, the magic genre he majored in is a rather unpopular shadow magic. And as the only chief of the 3 chiefs of the Federation, even he felt that he couldn't clean it up. If you handle this incident neatly, it really means that there is indeed a certain difficulty. The legendary combat mage's high-ring attack magic is indeed extremely powerful, but the premise is that he needs to let him act and use the attack without any difference. As long as he has become famous for his long time, he will do it easily. The self-created high-ring magic will immediately reveal his true identity, and it is difficult to cover it up. It's no problem to use your shadow storm to directly flatten the evil moon mining area, but those civilians are probably not spared. Fortunately, Mr. Turing is willing to take action and has also cleared us up. Dawn is rare. I agree with Gallagher's point of view, but the facts are right in front of me. He is a typical old-school research type spellcaster, and letting him solve the dispute in the evil moon mining area is more troublesome than Gallagher. After all, he is not very good at high-ring attack magic, and the most powerful Dawn the soul-gaining technique is also an indiscriminate attack that is almost indiscriminate. There is no mistake. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 619, 1 book, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, a book. Sarah sighed, okay, since the news shows that the problem has been solved perfectly, we don't have to repeat the solution we discussed countless times before. None of the three of us can take action. This is an established fact. The problem now is that the other party made a very strange request to my previous commitment, and I did not agree immediately, but to avoid angering that gentleman, we need to discuss a result as soon as possible. One of them wants to join the Federation in anonymous form, and wants to get a licensing license to access magic research literature, and also have the right to publish research literature. Dawn was stunned for a moment and asked with a strange expression, "What? Read the literature and publish the paper?" He, or they, the purpose of helping us, is this. Gallagher also interrupted in disbelief in the mirror, any current caster in the Federation with higher authority can obtain these rights. Isn't that worth it, right? Salas nodded in agreement and said, yes, I find it strange, but I really can't figure out what the meaning is. After all, the other party is not ours. Although we have never shown any malice in the past, we should still be wary of what may exist. Conspiracy. Dawn couldn't help but sneer and said self-deprecatingly, what? Do you think the outdated knowledge and old-fashioned magic that the Federation cherishes is worth the other party to pay this price to plagiarize? Humph, think about their methods and kill a few of them. The demon killer is as easy as killing a few flies. Sadas sighed lightly, and he felt that his thoughts were too sensitive and stressful. What about Gallagher? What do you think? The legendary battle mage in black robe thought for a moment and replied cautiously, I reluctantly agree with Dawn's view. With their abilities and ranks, I'm afraid they didn't really come for the Federation itself. We are all it is clear that those so-called precious documents and magic research papers piled in the sky and sky towers are probably not worth mentioning in the eyes of ancient wise races. The short-lived species like humans rely on the magic path to move forward, which is far less than the amount of knowledge accumulated by ancient races with a long lifespan of thousands of years. The only advantage they can gain is actually the courage to change and seek knowledge. The fanaticism is the real bargaining chip that human spellcasters can stand at the top of the magic tower on the continent. I heard that some secret ancient races love to observe and record various historical fragments and knowledge that are submerged in the long river of time. This gentleman who wants to join us, even the code name is called the Observer, is probably really a human being. As its name suggests, it is an ancient existence with special hobbies. The three legendary spellcasters looked at each other and finally reached a consensus on this issue. Agree that this mysterious gentleman named Newman, who joined the Spellcasters Federation in anonymous form, was unanimously authorized by the three chiefs to allow him to access the magic research literature collected and preserved in the Federation, and at the same time, he also granted him the right to publish research literature. In the hundreds of years since the establishment of the Federation, the first honorary member who only enjoys rights and does not need to fulfill his obligations has been officially born.